like severe later on, or it's a complicated back and forth. But the truth is that Jews started moving to Israel on larger numbers around that time. Okay. Um, the, it was a religious motivation, and especially because religious Jews knew that we were on the cusp of the days of Mashiach, and so therefore that motivated them to move to Israel and to because to await the Messiah and to begin preparations, and that's exactly what they did to the best of the of what was allowed to them by God. And how did they determine what was allowed to them by God? Well, they went in as many people as possible until the government, snapped at them or reacted back and then began curtailing it. Okay, that's the history of Jews trying to live in Israel. Okay, most of the Arabs that live in Israel now are not from Israel at all. Okay, it was a very tiny, sparsely populated country, right, with a little bit of Arabs, especially the area which Israel is, the state of Israel is now. Okay, most of them were in Jordan, okay, like East Jordan, and in North Lebanon and Syria. That's where in that particular area there were much bigger Arab. No, Arabs didn't want to live in what now is Israel because it was a barren wasteland, and then they only started moving there as economic migrants looking for jobs, working for Jews who established farms and they established an economy there.
Okay? Here's the crazy part: they didn't want to live there so much that they sold land and inflated prices. This is the folks who say that we stole land. We bought land at inflated prices. We built it up, and then Arabs came. Oh, now that you've built it up, this is the typical cycle of kind of what goes on. Now that something is ours, they want it.
Yeah, folks, the small amount of Arabs that were on the land of Israel, many of them, they weren't really living in Israel. They just owned land there. Okay, they were mostly in Jordan, because most of the people who call themselves Palestinians are Jordanians. Most of them. The rest are Egyptians, Moroccans, and Saudis, and Yemenites, and from all over the Arab world. Okay, so the small amount of Arabs who actually owned land in Israel, they didn't even live there. Okay, they sold their properties at, like Greg said, at extremely inflated prices, and then they lived where they wanted to live, and then only when they started to feel threatened by the Jewish presence, right, that Jews were getting powerful, then they start to concoct all of this nonsense. Whatever, we won't get into that. But so my point is like this: that people who advocate for Jews to drop everything and move to Israel, right? They do so. It's understandable why they do so, because they're coming from a religious. They're religiously motivated because they believe that since it's technically possible for Jews to live in Israel right now, right? Even though it's very difficult, like the Israeli government is in essence hostile to Jews moving to Israel, especially religious Jews. Okay, the Israeli government, right, the vast majority of it, the political class of Israel, is in the process of destroying Israel as a Jewish country. They've been doing that since the 60s, possibly earlier. Okay, but once they realized they were not going to get their socialist utopia, because that we don't go with that. We don't roll like that. Most of the Jews in Israel, okay, really in the world, but by far, but most of the Jews certainly in Israel are anti-socialist. They are religious or traditional. Okay, so I understand the move to Israel advocates. I understand what their motivation is, and I personally agree with it. Even though I much prefer America as a republic. First of all, I was born here in America, and I love it, and it's my home, and it's frankly, it's inconceivable for another country to be my home, especially one so different from America. Uh, um, I don't like the society that they built there. I don't like very much about it, to be honest with you. I think it's very tragic and it's sad. And I think what happened on October 7th, which we'll get into in a little bit, that's what that was caused by the type of society that they built and the type of people that they raised. Do you understand? And not bad people, but just in a sense delusional. Okay, so be that as it may, with all the negative things about Israel, right? I am religiously obligated to live there, which is true, and I can technically go there. Okay, and so I must, out of a religious obligation. Even me being I'm an American and I love America. And the only reason I'm not there, other than the fact that I don't want to go, but I would force myself, is my family. My family, they're not. We didn't grow up me and my brother, Dr. Zelenko, we didn't grow up in a religious environment. Our family was secular. We came to this ourselves. Him as a young man, me as a teenager. Okay, so so I'm anchored here primarily because of my family. I'm not using that as an excuse because I literally cannot.
Frank, can I ask a question?
I'd like to finish my
With regards to, okay,
soon. Okay, so that's why I'm not in Israel. I would force myself to go there out of religious obligations, even though I don't like the government or really the society they built. But I would force myself to because I can live there and function as a religious Jew, even if it's hard. Okay, so I have to go. But I stated some facts here. But here are some facts that that move to Israel advocates always neglect. Here's where I'm gonna shit on them now for being the let them eat cake type people. Like they have this mentality, like, Marie Antoinette, right? Like the French queen, the people are, let them eat cake. That's what they're like, folks. Okay. So they are religious people and they are technically stating things that are, technically correct. However, they are incredibly unrealistic about the reality of what people face. Meaning, if they want to be successful, boy, are they going about it the wrong way.
Yeah.
Because here's the problem. Israel, the government of Israel, which is, again, anti-Jewish and anti-Torah, and it's trying to stop Jews from moving to Israel, okay? Regardless of what you might hear from it. Ask Jews who have actually tried to do that. It's a nightmare.
Even now, they're showing to be themselves to be anti-Torah with the bills that they're trying to pass.
Yeah. Okay.
And the craziest part to me is you have a guy named Yuli Edelstein who comes from the Soviet Union where they banned religion, and he's one of the guys at the forefront of this thing.
Yeah. So logistically speaking, realistically, it's very uncomfortable to move to Israel. There's no practical incentives for Jews who live, let's say, in America or in any other place, other than escape from persecution. Like, for instance, like right now in Toronto, right, the government has totally shit on the Jewish community entirely. Jews are being attacked. Palestinians, Hamas supporters are literally flooding Jewish neighborhoods and smashing houses of worship, Jewish houses of worship, shuls, right? What you guys call synagogues.
Yeah.
Nothing, no response, no nothing. Justin Trudeau despises the Jews and totally relates to the Palestinian, whatever, the people who call themselves Palestinians. And he allows riots. The same thing is in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And in London, I think it's probably the worst.
I mean, we just saw in Miami, the guy, I sent you a link, a guy just shot someone trying to break into his, I guess his restaurant in the middle of the day. Baruch Hashem, thank God it happened in Florida, because in Florida you could defend yourself, and the
Florida's
cops
a little better because
be on your side.
Back.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, like somebody, knocks on my door, right? I'm ready. I mean, look, at least I can say I killed the first 3 or 4 guys who are coming at me. I really do want to kill them. I really do. Like, I'm not a pacifist. I'm not one of those Jews who absorbed who became a Mennonite.
Yeah.
You know, so I would very much like to kill and or maim and harm those who come and try to harm me. I hope it never comes to that, but I would be very upset if I had to die without at least shooting the balls off the person who's coming. If I leave them alive, I want them to live a ballless life, a ballless, dickless life. Okay, and so at least in Florida, that scenario can play out. God forbid, that's obviously the worst case scenario. Okay, so yeah, so basically, for stuff like that, then if you're faced in a situation like that, then Israel, thank God, hopefully, if they don't interfere with us going there. But when things were a little bit better, maybe they'll return to being better in America. There's really very little incentive for a Jew outside of religious reasons to move to Israel. And and even, by the way, also possibly it may not be good for religious reasons as well. Like we said, the government is pretty hostile towards religious Jews. And in some cases, religious Jews in America feel freer to worship and less persecuted than religious Jews do in Israel. Okay? We won't get into that, but there is a point there. Nevertheless, technically speaking, if you move to Israel, you won't be butchered necessarily by your government, and therefore that might be reason enough to obligate Jews to move to Israel based on religious obligation. Okay. So here's what I would say to Israel, to move to Israel advocates, Aliyah advocates. If you want to be more successful at your job, if you actually take this seriously, what you have to do is don't bother us, the Jews outside of Israel. Bother the Jews inside of Israel and the government, okay, to make it less hostile, and in fact, maybe even to make it something that Jews outside of Israel want to do, like they yearn to do. How could you do that? Well, perhaps if you start, let's say, a revolution in Israel, not political, but just a cultural, religious, emotional revolution in Israel, where you get Israelis to be like, we can no longer stand our brothers not living with us in the land of Israel. We will do anything for you to come. We can't stand it. We need you here. We want you here. We'll open our homes to you. That's it. We'll take care of you. We'll make sure that you get on your feet. We love you. We want you here. Nobody's tried that, right?
Can I tell you something with regards to what you're saying? Every time I visit Israel, the people that I deal with, at least, winemakers, other people that I speak to, Israelis, they always say to me the phrase, "No, come, we're waiting for you." To me specifically. And I said, I made Aliyah and I had to go back and I was back and forth. I already had like Aliyah 2.0, and I always joke with people, I'm trying to make Aliyah 3.0. And I always tell them, guys, you're waiting for me. But what are you doing to that end? Again, it all goes back to no one has suggestions. The only thing that I will say is that, and to push back on what you said about a little bit about what you said about there's no incentive for people to make Aliyah. Listen, a lot of the people that I know who have made Aliyah, people who are under 40 or under 50, let's say they came by themselves or even came as married couples. It's very much a mentality of ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Meaning, if enough people, the mentality is, if enough people from, let's say, America make Aliyah, we can participate in building the land and also participate in really changing some of the things. Not so much the culture, because the culture kind of sucks you in. Like we joke about how, all these Americans think they're going to come and they're going to, Americanize a lot of the things about Israel. It never happens. They're the ones that get sucked in and they become kind of Israeli, or they just kind of accept the way, the Middle East is, because the Middle East has its kind of MO. It does, really. Even Jews in Israel. And for some people it's too much. Like a lot of people that I know that have left Israel, they didn't leave because of money or because of this and that. They left because of culture. The culture is very hard for them to adjust. Whatever. There's just a lot. I won't get into. There's just a lot of
I don't
things
believe
that
that.
listen, dude.
They,
You cannot
they,
believe all you want. I
no,
talk to people.
people don't leave because of culture. People leave
I'll
because they are extremely unsuccessful. Most of the time, it's economic.
I'm telling you the people that I know, like at least 50% of the people have told me that little things about the country, not the money thing, but little things about the country annoy them. And they even told me, by the way, that they would be willing to deal with the fact that they're making less. They have a lower salary at the same job that they have whatever city they work in, if it wasn't for the little micro things every day that pile up, the little nuisances.
Well, are those the people that you're describing there? Are they the worst people that you know? Because they sound like the worst people I've ever heard of.
What do you mean? What are you talking about?
To leave the land of Israel, if you're a Jew, because of little micro things that bother you, because of little peeves, you are a fucking retard.
Dude, but
moron,
can I tell you something? It piles up. It really piles up.
I ain't trying to hear that, Greg.
Dude, banks open on
that shouldn't even be part of this discussion.
Why not?
Because it's like entertain. It's like what do you call it? Not entertaining, but like indulging trans people.
Okay.
You understand? It's the same shit. It's like you really, if that's really why you left Israel, I really think that you're
okay. Let me rephrase, Frank. Let me rephrase.
I
know people that have lived in Israel for 10 years, and it had gotten to a point where, so to speak, like you're talking about economics again. I'll give you a prime example. A person who lived in Israel for 10 years, he came for religious reasons. He wanted to be there, and then worked in one of the more prominent newspapers in Israel. However you think of newspapers in Israel, but like it's considered a prominent newspaper. Was making 6,000 shekels a month. You know what 6,000 shekels a month is?
Remind me.
$1,500, $1,700. I don't even know how he survived. Right?
Okay, that's bad.
Okay, so, but he was willing to. He told me he was willing to accept that. However, you want to, like, for example, dude, you're in Miami. I'm in New York, right? I don't know what bank you bank with. What's your bank? TD, Chase?
Little of this, little of that.
Okay, TD Bank open every day, basically the same hours. In Israel, you have two things about banks. One is different hours every day. They take what's called siestas. On top of that, if you want to do any major banking operations, you have what's called a sniff. A sniff is the bank that you opened your account with, the what is it called? The branch, and you must go to that branch. Meaning, my sniff, like I have an account in Leumi, my sniff is in Tel Aviv. What happens if I live in Jerusalem? I decide to move to Jerusalem. If I want
to interrupt you. Listen,
I just
no. I want to interrupt you. So basically, the person that you're describing is, $1,700 a month, right? A person can't really live on that. So he was already miserable, and the little micro. So it's again, that's
I wasn't done. You didn't know for the full story of the person.
No, I have enough information.
No, it's not enough information. No, it's not enough information.
I want to get back on my point.
There's other relevant information.
I want to get back on my point originally. Okay, this is supposed to be like a momentary diversion, and it got. So I just wanted to finish my point. So basically, a person who gets $1,700 a month in the modern world in Israel cannot survive because of how expensive everything is. So they're economically miserable. Okay, they have no real prospects unless they're promised some kind of huge promotion. Unlikely, and they can't really get married on that money. They barely live themselves. They probably need a roommate. Food is very expensive. Gas. They certainly don't have a car. Okay, so that alone that's enough, for a person to not really want to live in Israel unless they're completely religiously dedicated, which is pretty rare in the world. It's hard to be so religious that you give your life over to serving God, and you're like, God, I'll do anything just to live in the land of Israel. There are people like that, but not as many. I'm not going to count myself as one of those people.
I'm one of them.
You are one of them. Did you say you are?
I am one of them, and I
Okay,
want to
so-
ask you a question to that. What you mentioned about your family.
Yeah.
I have had, and I actually agree with this. There's many people that have told me, and actually checks out with what they told me, because at least in my family, it checks out. That my father's told me on multiple occasions. He said this phrase: "I go where my grandchildren are," and I've had friends that told me, I tell them, I'm waiting for my parents. My parents are selling their house, and I have multiple friends that told me, dude, you realize if you move to Israel, they're going to follow you, and it's true, it's a fact. So here's my question to you: if you move to Israel, would your parents follow you?
Hell no. No, not at all. If I move to Israel, here is the circumstances in which my parents would follow me. Okay, if I were so wealthy, right, that I could buy a large home, possibly a building with several apartments, okay, and I can accommodate them. I can pay for their move. I can make sure that everything is smooth and easy, okay, and that they live in a safe place, relatively safe, as much as a human can guarantee safety. And so what I just described, you have to be a multimillionaire to accomplish such a thing, okay? And not just you. And we're not talking about like multimillionaire. Let's say somebody has $2 million. That's technically a multimillionaire. That's not enough to accommodate what I just said, okay? So it's such an unlikely situation. All right, because they've had a lot of hardship in their life, economic hardship, and they've had a very recent hardship economic wise, and they also just lost their son, and they moved to Florida before he passed, and basically he was he was taking care of them to the best of his ability. He can no longer take care of them. Now they're stuck with much more expenses than they had, and it's very, very bad for my family right now economically. Very, very bad. Worse than it ever was. Okay, and it's been bad. Okay, so we're keeping it together just by trying to have faith and just being together, but it's pretty bad right now. So my parents would not be able to mentally, emotionally handle moving in under normal circumstances, but under these circumstances, very unlikely. Okay, so basically, my point is that if the people who advocate for Jews to come to Israel, right, you're going about it all wrong. Okay, it's like that person who that ambassador program. I'm not going to get into the details, right? She said to me, and I didn't know this. She said, you have to find 2 more people. There's a minimum of 3 people. I don't know 3 single people. Not because everyone I know is so wonderful and handsome and they and lovely that they can't stay unmarried.
You just don't hang out with single people.
I don't know how many. I know
Frank,
folks. I know Greg, and I know my friend Eric. I lost touch with like everybody else. I barely leave the house.
Frank, my first thought when you said that to me yesterday on you wrote that to me on WhatsApp, I was like, Klaus Schwab strikes again.
Yes. Okay. Right. So the point is like these Israel advocate people, right? Israel advocate people, they put pressure on Jews. They're like, oh, just have some faith. They say this, Mesiras Nefesh.
Yeah.
Say that the Israeli way.
Mesirat Nefesh.
Yeah, which means instead of literally what it means have a little self-sacrifice.
Yeah.
Suffer,
physical sacrifice.
Yeah. Okay. So instead of doing that, you would be much more successful if you convinced the Jews that are in Israel already to somehow all contribute to sending a message to us here in Israel that you want us there, and more than just lip service, right? If you build it, they will come. You ever heard that? That's a very American message.
Correct.
Okay. All right. That's the one thing that from Kevin Costner that I ever liked. That's the one thing I ever agreed with him on in anything. Okay. If you build it, they will come. All right. I'm referring to this movie, The Field of Dreams, right? Where I'm not going to get into the thing, but he needed to build a baseball field so that the spirits of these famous baseball players would come and play there, and yada yada, and so forth. Okay, but if you build it, they will come, and that's a very Torah concept, right? What is it called? Preparing a keli, preparing a vessel, right? There are famous stories of ladies, right, who married ladies, right, who wanted to have children, and they would go to the rabbi, and this stories like this in every generation, and not just any rabbi, but special, very very special, saintly rabbis, renowned for having miracles associated with their life, and they would seek blessings from these rabbis, and the rabbi would say, "I bless you that you will have a child." And he would say that to two women, right? There's a story. Two women came, and he blessed both of them, and one of them got pregnant. The other one didn't. So the one who didn't complained to him and said, "Well, why did your blessing work out for her and not for me?" He said, "When she received the blessing, she was so sure that it was going to work out, that the blessing was going to succeed, that she immediately went out. She bought a crib." She bought a baby rattle. She started preparing, expecting this baby to arrive. Okay, so she made it a reality, right? You waited to see if it would work out. Okay, there's another story like that with our father Abraham, right? So Nimrod, right? He heard about Abraham's faith and the kind of teachings he was teaching people, Torah, right, about the creator of existence. And so Nimrod, he threatened to throw Abraham into the furnace if he were to continue, and Abraham did. And then his brother, was it Nahor? Who was his brother? I forgot. He had two brothers. I'm trying to remember which brother it was. So his brother was waiting to see if God would save Abraham, right? So Abraham was thrown into the furnace by Nimrod, by Nimrod's men, and he came out unscathed. Obviously, God, made a blessing. So then his brother announced that he also believes in this God, and they threw him in there, and he didn't save him. Okay, so it takes. You have to kind of already prepare for a blessing for it to work out. You can't just wait and see what happens last minute. Okay, it's called creating a keli, creating a vessel. Okay, Abraham's brother didn't prepare it. He was waiting to see what would happen. He didn't cultivate his faith. He didn't really, integrate Abraham's teachings. Right? He wanted to see, what would happen, and then kind of join up with the winners and so forth. Okay, that's not creating a blessing that's not creating a vessel for a blessing that will succeed. Okay, so if the Israeli government actually wanted Jews to come to Israel, they would already pre-build cities and towns. There would be constant construction going on in Israel, every possible way, and they would say, listen, folks, I've heard suggestions of the following, like when people were talking about about relocating the Arabs who call themselves Palestinians, which is a great idea. You've had people who say, we will build you entire pre-built luxury townhouse communities anywhere in the 22 Arab countries, or maybe the other 60 Muslim countries, anywhere you want. We will entirely pay for it. Everything pre-built, high quality, community gymnasiums, ping pong centers, pools, basketball courts, everything, luxury townhouses, and relocate everybody there for the purpose of peace, right? How much is peace worth to you? There are billionaires, Jewish billionaires, who would be willing to give all of their money for something like this, right?
Frank, there are
hold on, wait, I'm almost done. Hold on. So basically, So that is a technical possibility. So we know that there are people who can do that, who are considering doing that, who have been considering doing that for a long time for Arabs. But what if they did that for Jews? How about
Yeah.
they do that for Jews? Do you understand? So there's a lot of reasons why. I'm sure many people have thought of this, and I'm sure that the Israeli government is interfering with that as much as they possibly can, because they hate Jews and they hate religious Jews, and they're trying to dismantle Israel as a country for Jews, regardless of what they say. Okay, so again, that's what if the people who advocate for Jews moving to Israel militantly, right, or they get, people get in your face, then they're barking up the wrong tree. Okay, fix your house and then open the door and welcome us. Okay, if you're serious about it. That's it.
Those people will tell you, Frank, with regards to what you said about Mesiras Nefesh, you know how it's never been easier. People were coming to Israel on horse and buggy, and they were getting attacked by bandits, and they were, they didn't have the organizations Nefesh B'Nefesh. They didn't have all, the government giving them money. They didn't have like flights that they didn't have a lal. You could just get on a flight, and now on the airplane you have speaking of religion, you have like the cups to wash your hands with in the bathroom on the plane. A religious guy bought a lal, and he put all these, he put the prayer times in the screens now. It's, they'll tell you it's never been easier. It's never been easier, but I used to be close with this rabbi. He used to say that people like to tell other people, Jews like to tell other Jews, like you said, or they're saying, why don't you have Mesiras Nefesh? They don't understand that, like, there's no every generation is to be dealt with on their level. Meaning, I cannot tell a person, for example, that, hey, did you know that your grandfather or great grandfather walked in the snow and in the freezing cold to go to synagogue, and you have your synagogue is right there. How dare you not go to synagogue? Maybe the challenges of today are not the freezing cold and this and that. Maybe the challenges are internal. Maybe the challenges are that people find it hard. They have what's called the Yetzer Hara, more of an inclination not to go to synagogue, no matter if the synagogue is across the street or, I don't know, in your house. Frank is going to glide by.
No, I'm here. I just had to turn the camera off for a second. Continue.
I forgot what I was going to say. The point is, every generation has to be judged on their own abilities and on their own merits. And I don't think they're taking it. I don't think they're taking that into account. I forgot what I was going to say, Mr. Frank. He's gone. I'm alone. I'm by myself. Yeah, I can hear you.
I got to grab the baby for 2 seconds. Hold on.
You got to grab a what?
I'll be right there.
Frank cares a lot about this podcast, you can see. I'm trying to think of what I was going to tell Frank with regards to pushing back. With regards to pushing back on what he was saying about.
I had to grab the baby for a second.
Oh.
I just didn't. Okay. I heard everything you said.
Yeah. I mean, what did I want to push back on a little bit with regards to what you said about?
I was saying that it's inhospitable, and you're saying that Israel advocates are going to showing you how it's way more hospitable than it ever was.
No, it is hospitable. I forgot. I'm being zapped.
Okay, while you're remembering that, let me at least comment on what you said so far. So getting to Israel, yes, of course, much easier, obviously. Okay, you can get on a El Al flight and so on and so forth. Okay, and you don't have to take a horse and buggy. Yes, I understand that. Okay. Yes, I understand in previous generations, people had to take a horse and buggy, but you have to understand that in previous generations, the people who attempted to move to Israel were the most religiously dedicated people, super holy, the holiest of the holy, who
Yeah.
did this. Okay. And so it's not really necessarily expected that us, the final generation, are going to have that level of devotion that our like majestic forefathers did. Okay, that's number one. You can't really expect that. Number two, unfortunately, you can't really expect that. Number two, it's not about getting to Israel, and it's not about some organization which kind of helps you get to Israel and then maybe helps you out a little bit to live there for the first couple of months or something like that. Maybe it'll get you a class where it'll help you get a free learn class or something like that. But they're not addressing the main things. It's living in Israel, living, dealing with the government, living in Israel. Israel is not a free country, folks.
Yeah.
It's not. It's essentially some kind of they practice what they call democratic socialism. Okay,
Yeah.
everything is government run. It is like the DMV. Have you been to the DMV, folks, in a city?
Yeah.
Except the whole government is like that. It's the same bullshit as we're dealing with here, probably worse. And people who want to succeed, who have ideas, who can be amazing businessmen, cannot thrive in that environment.
Frank, with what you're saying, there's a few things that I tell people. I've been telling people who want to make Aliyah. I tell them, if you have your own business and you want to make Aliyah, I tell them, keep your business in America. And the only, like, not the only way, but how should I put this? You're most likely not going to thrive in Israel unless you have an American-based business. Like, unless you have income coming in, you work remotely and you have income coming in from America. Because in order just to have an LLC in Israel, like to have a be incorporated in Israel, you're paying through the nose every month. And folks, I just want to say, a lot of people, we just had the last week's Torah portion, and they say, oh, everything you guys are doing right now, I will literally have people accusing us, me and Frank, of what we're doing right now is being like the 10 spies. No, we're not being like the 10 spies. If we were like the 10 spies, we would say, there are Arabs there and this and that, there's giants there, it's not safe. No, we're talking about life in Israel. And life in Israel can be alleviated, can be helped, not by the Arabs. If all the Arabs tomorrow stop stabbing us and killing us, life in Israel will not, everyday life will not be easier. Okay? Because of all the stuff, and that stuff is precipitated by the government. That's why anytime I hear any person telling me, oh, you have to look in the Talmud, what the Talmud says, the land of Israel is acquired through Isurim, acquired through hardships. These are natural hardships. These are not government imposed hardships.
Exactly.
These people, these so-called religious people, have convinced themselves that the things that they're experiencing through all those little tiki-tack things that I talked about are just part of the hardships of the land. No, they're not. You know who experienced the hardships of the land? The Hasidic Jews that came and experienced the hardships of the land, tumbling tumbleweeds, swamps, and Arabs and the people, the natives who were there, or whatever, a couple of people who were there. They had to deal with them, whether they were being attacked by them or the Ottoman Turks or whoever it was. But Jews making it hard for other Jews to live in the land of Israel, that is not Isurin. That is an artificial, like, commie manifestation of just no. That's not one of the things. That's not what the Talmud's talking about. Clearly not. And so with that said, I have a lot of friends in Israel who will say, okay, so if you have these complaints, come join us and we'll work on it together. We'll work to change the system. I have some of these folks that had the Aliyah conference that literally said, if only we could just get like 1 million American Jews to move, the whole system will change. Literally, that they will enter the government like Pollard wants to do, Jonathan Pollard. A bunch of Americans entering, I don't know, the Knesset or the government or wherever they go, and we'll just magically change the system over time, right?
I don't think that would work for the following reason. The system in Israel is not controlled by the population or even by this political class, which it calls itself the Israeli government. We know that that's not really who's pulling the strings. We know that they're just an extension of the deep state of the general Western civilization, probably centered in Washington and in Switzerland. Okay, that's the problem. The problem is the Jews are not in charge. Even the ones who are seemingly in the government, they're just the lapdogs of the deep state. Okay, so if let's say 1 million American Jews, like you said, came there, and we want to start the American Republic there. We want to refound it or clone it, duplicate it. Like the founding fathers did here in America. We would have to fight a war against the people who are running it now, because that's the last thing that they would allow to happen. That's the last. They wouldn't even allow that now in America. Can you imagine if Israel adopted the American Constitution while they're waiting for Mashiach to come? Are you kidding me? You would literally see every nuke from every country that has them all land on Israel at the same time. Because why? Because if the Jews do something, then it reverberates throughout the world. We're like a tuning fork, right? You ring us, and then you stick it in the ground, and then it eventually reaches the whole world. That's one of the purposes of that God brought Jews into the world. Okay, so the last thing that they would want. Remember, we talked earlier. The last thing they want is Jews farming. The last thing they want is Jews leaving cities, right, and going back to their agrarian or to our agrarian roots, right? They would blow up the country for that alone. Can you imagine if we tried to establish a constitutional republic? You kidding me? So honestly, the only way out of this is Mashiach, right? For a problem on that scale.
Yeah.
But you can bypass the government, right? Look, any kind of solution that we're going to be talking about without Mashiach is always some kind of like plan C, kind of like mitigative solution, which is that the government's not going to help. Forget it. And again, this is an address to Israel advocates. Move to Israel advocates. Start a grassroots movement in the land of Israel, okay, to where you deal with private citizens, private, Israeli millionaires or billionaires that you can get on board, right, and build settlements, build townhouse communities or whatever, condos or whatever the hell in Israel, and say, just come and live here. Just come live here, free house. And then when you get here, we'll figure out how to get you a livelihood and all kind of stuff. That would be, that would be exciting. It's like your relative saying, I prepared your room. Your room is just as you left it, in a sense, right? Remember, like you're home. Come. We made space for you.
Instead, what are they doing? They are allowing these wealthy people to buy apartments, and then the apartments are kept empty. Some of them are rented out, but they're kept empty throughout the year, only for these people to come for the Hagim, the holidays, which drives the real estate prices up. So then what happens is they start doing this thing, basically regulation, and then the government comes in. It's basically like a recipe for them to take control of the markets, the real estate prices, and to drive them up. Like, dude, you look at Jerusalem, real estate prices are going through the roof. And then these guys who are pushing Aliyah and say, come on, guys, come to Israel because it's only going to get more and more expensive, and your house is not going to be worth anything because of the pogroms in America or whatever. This whole thing. Instead of just helping us, it's like Glenn Garrett, Glenn Ross. You are here to help us, not to F us up.
And yes, another thing, just to be fair, I want to be fair. I should have mentioned this before. Most Israelis are poor.
Yeah,
most Israelis are barely over the poverty line. They're blue collar workers. They work in factories and they do blue collar jobs. and they have to pay rent. Most Israelis do not own their homes, by the way. Okay,
Yeah.
so essentially they're victims of a socialist like country, a stupid socialist system that keeps everybody like below mediocrity. Do you understand? And it's difficult to live. People work all day and they just barely get by, and things are only getting more expensive. Okay. And so, and again, only a small percentage of Israel has any economic success. You have like, you know,
Yeah. Dude, you know what
it's a very unfair. It's an unfair society. It's not good. It's not a good
when
country.
I asked a winemaker whose main career was not as a winemaker. He's already in his 60s and he's kind of like semi-retired, and he worked for like a multinational high-tech company. So I guess he can't really. It's difficult for him to relate to people who are, you know, lower echelon. And I asked him, I'm like, why are cars? Why do they charge what's called the VAT tax on cars in Israel? Why don't we just get rid of it and make cars affordable for Israelis? You know, $25,000 or $30,000 car in America and Israel is $60,000. And he said, well, we have to fund the army. You know, we have all this defense. And really, take a look at October 7th. What are we funding?
Exactly.
What did we fund?
And by the way, Americans, what the fuck are you funding? Your border, our border, is being flooded by the by the same maniacs of October 7th. There's way more of them in this country than there is there. They're waiting for orders to launch their attacks. Where's your military?
Frank, that's the only thing that upset me about this the debate when they asked Trump about, you know, the question about because Trump, you know, Mr. President, you said you were going to do a mass deportation, and I really wanted, instead of answering Biden to one of his latest murmurings, I really wanted Trump to get into the weeds of who he's referring to. I really wanted him to say, I'm gonna you know, kick out Hezbollah. I'm gonna kick out the cartels. I'm gonna kick out this Venezuelan psychos. I'm gonna kick out these guys because they're here and they're planning to commit attacks. I really wanted him to say that.
I felt the same way as you, except
I got very upset when he just went off on a tangent.
In hindsight, he may have been right, because look, he says that all the time. He's literally says that every.
But people are not paying attention.
No. He says that every speaking rally, that we have to do the biggest rally, we have to get rid of it. He says that every single time.
I wanted the Democrat Jews to hear it. You know what I'm saying?
They've heard. Trust me, they heard it. They hear it. What he did was he didn't get bogged down in a trap that they set for him in that discussion. Okay, because again, that debate. Think about the basis of the debate. What debate is that? That wasn't a debate.
Yeah.
What the hell was that? That was Trump showing America what the hell that creature is that's standing across from him. That wasn't about the issues. Yeah. There's nothing to talk to there. It's a corpse. Yeah. That's not a debate. If it was a real debate, maybe he'd go into it. The whole thing was a trap that they tried to set for him, but he used it to show, look at this.
He used it to go Mike Tyson. Bill Maher said it was the first 30, you know, like Mike Tyson knocking somebody out in the first 90 seconds of a bout.
I just wanted to say, after I say the following, because you mentioned the spies, I want to quickly comment on that. After that, can we play that Trump ad where he's just like quietly like looking at Biden for like a minute and a half? Biden just it's awesome. So you mentioned the spies, right? There are some people who say that the stuff that we're saying, the truth, right, about reality, about people moving to Israel and people being pressured to move to Israel, they're calling us the spies, folks. If you're not familiar with the Bible, with the Hebrew scripture, okay, when the Jews got near the land of Israel, right, they asked for to send out people to reconnoiter the land of Israel, reconnaissance. They call those the spies, right? They were going to go and spy out the land to see what's going on over there. Okay, so they came back and they gave a bad report to the people. They said it wasn't all of them. It was 12 spies that were sent out. 10 of them came back and give a bad report. 2 of them did not. Joshua, who represented the tribe of Ephraim, and Caleb, who represented the tribe of Judah. Judah in the house, right? Those are the 2 who gave a positive report about the land of Israel. Okay, so the 10 spies, they came and they said, oh, there's terrifying giants and monsters and then all these hazards. Okay, that is not at all what we're doing at all. Okay, because they didn't have to deal with what we're dealing with. So if all Jews had to deal with was giant monsters, dragons and trolls and ice giants, okay, and ninjas from hell, we wouldn't be saying what we're saying here. Okay, the problem is that the Jewish people at that time, they had God as a guarantor, right? He literally said, "I'll take care of you." When God says that, you can't complain. That's number one. Number two, they didn't have a leadership that was going to try to sabotage them. They had a leadership that was going to help them thrive, who was actually for them. They had Moses. They had Moses and they had Joshua, who and those are the main leaders who they were interested in establishing a good country where people could thrive, where people could have good livelihoods, where they could have fertile land, where they could have plenty of land and everything and all the resources that they need. Okay, so and the hardship would be the actual work that needs to be done. Farm work. Farm work is not easy. Ask any farmers, right? Even nowadays with modern equipment, can you imagine, with the ancient tools, right? So that part would be difficult, right? They'd have to work all day. But you cannot compare. There's no comparison whatsoever between what we are saying and what the spies are saying. Okay? Because the spies, in fact, they were the ones who are like the government of Israel. Because, folks, originally, before the government was established, the political class that is currently in charge of Israel, the descendants of rich, anti-religious Jews who were trying to stop Jews from moving to Israel from Europe. They were trying to stop those immigrations, these groups of people leaving Poland or leaving Germany or leaving Italy and landing in. They were trying to stop that. They were putting money to stop that. They were printing pamphlets. Sometimes they were paying local governments as Jews were trying to get to Israel. They were paying local governments to stop them and imprison them and sometimes kill them. They wanted to stop that. You might be thinking to yourself, well, why? That's a very long discussion. Okay. Because it's called the Erev Rav. We'll get into it another time. Okay, so that's the spies. Okay, so the spies were not the government at that time. Okay, they had the leadership was Moses, Joshua, and God. That's who their leadership was. They should have. Nobody had any justification to be worried about any kind of success in Israel. Okay, you had literally the creator of existence telling you all you got to do is just literally talking to you in real time. He's saying, just go do this here. Do what I say, and I will literally protect you.
Yeah, you didn't have to go to any rabbis to seek counsel. You didn't have to get an advice. Like there's some people that go before they decide to move to Israel. They go to their rabbi. One rabbi says, for them, that's for you guys. It's not the time yet. For you guys, it's or like the Lubavitch Rebbe used to tell some people. Used to tell, no, for you, it's better to go to Australia. For you, it's better to go to Canada. For you, it's better to go. They built an entire town in Israel called Kfar Chabad, where Chabad people went. There was already Chabad people in a place called Hebron for years and other places in Israel. So, you got advice. Here, like Frank is saying, it was clear as day. It's time to go.
It was a no-brainer. God said, go. Yeah. I want you here. Yeah. End of story. Yeah. End of story. Yeah. We'll take care of you. Fine. Okay. Yeah. So, just on a side point, why did the spies do this? Well, because they weren't evil. They were so holy that they didn't want a more mundane existence, because while the Jews were in the desert, right, they were protected. They were living a supernatural life. They were protected by these supernatural clouds that kept the temperature perfect, protected them from all beasts, right, of the wilderness, and from all, enemies. Like, even they wouldn't let arrows through, and their clothes never, God preserved their clothes. These people, they never got dirty. They never had to bathe. They didn't have to. It was a very supernatural existence, and all they did sit, study Torah, and contemplate God. They didn't want, but now God said, okay, it's a new type of existence. You're going to go to Israel. You're going to start working the land. You're going to be working. You're not going to be involved in all this, hypothetical or theoretical study and contemplation. You're going to put it all into practice now. And that they just couldn't handle that idea. Okay. They panicked because they didn't want to be farmers, and they thought it was going to be a lot worse than what they had gotten used to. And there's other complications. So that's just the side point why the spies behaved like they did. Okay. So they were also worried that they were going to fall in their spiritual level, meaning they were scared that there's much more potential for sinning when you're living a mundane life, when you're involved in everyday life, with your hands in the soil, right? And you're dealing with animals, right? You're dealing a more physical kind of, like, it's more of a brute reality that can evoke animalistic instincts that are latent. They didn't want to make contact with that part of themselves. So they really just wanted to stay high, spiritual, separated from the world. They didn't want to get involved. Okay, that's the sin of the spies. Anyway, so they didn't have to deal with they didn't have a self-sabotaging government to deal with. Moses, Joshua, God, and the other leaders that were chosen, Aaron and his sons, right? The government at that time, was there to do everything they can for true thriving, not just spiritual, but physical thriving. Okay. So totally different scenario.
So these people will come back and say to you, but, they spoke badly about the land. And, here we are, we're also, dude, I remember when I, during this whole, I mentioned to you this, during this whole vaccine thing, there was a guy who I thought was my friend who, was he's a lawyer in the biotech field in Israel. And because I was talking, badly about this whole Pfizer situation, he lumped it in with, he basically accused me of talking bad about the land. Because I was saying how, I was saying how Israelis have been duped by the government and all that kind of stuff. Like, people in Israel have taken everything that goes on with respect to, high tech and medical technology and all the thing. To them, that's the land, because anything that happens on the land is the land. And how dare you say that this is bad, right? How dare you call out something that's maybe criminal?
How's it the land? It's not the land at all.
Because to them, anything that's, again, somebody, they wrote that book, Startup Nation, right? A few years ago, somebody wrote that book, Startup Nation. Somebody convinced them that Israel, given that Israel is a startup nation, and the startup is part of, we, like you said, we've gone from being not only a agrarian society, Israel, right? There are farms, there are vineyards, but also startups. That's one of the things that Israel does, right? So if you come and you disparage one of the things that Israel does, and that includes medical technology, being the first country to adopt this novel thing, that is under the umbrella of what goes on in the land. One of the accomplishments of Israel, what Israel, meaning of quote unquote Israel, what Israel is, we don't know, of Israel, right? It's like every time I hear people saying Israel should, do this, fill in the blank. Israel who? What? The lefty, the Ramatkal, the labor unions, the Supreme Court, the prime minister who has basically no power over the army. What do you mean by, when you say, or the population? When you say Israel, what do you mean by Israel? Is it like something floating idea in the sky? What?
Yeah, I'll tell you what it is.
What is Israel when you say Israel?
Okay, I'll
It's
tell you
not a
what it is.
monolith.
The thing is, Israel, listen to me. Israel, what is Israel? It's actually the people, the primary population, and the land. That's what it is. The population, which is
Sorry, I'm listening to you. I apologize. I have to step away for a second.
okay, which is right wing. The folks, the vast population of Israel, right? Not a huge country, couple million people. Okay, 8-9 million people, and the vast majority of them, very similar to America, are traditional right-wing people. Okay, they're either religious or they're traditional. Okay, but they have no representation. So when people say Israel should do something, it's not really a good statement to make, because the real Israel, doesn't have the power to do that, what you are saying. The people who actually behind the steering wheel, unfortunately, like America and in Europe, are not representative of the population. Not only do they not represent the population as politicians like they're supposed to. That's not what I'm saying. Not just that way, but they're also completely different breed of people. It's a separate entity. And I would gather it's the same in your countries as well, for the most part. Okay, there's an alien presence that is essentially taken hold of our societies. Yes, it's our fault that it was allowed to happen. Now that they're in there, it's pretty tough to get them out. Okay, we allowed them to distract us with absurd entertainment. Okay, where we made entertainment like the goal of our life, right? Leisure and entertainment. They used that to get into power. They made our focus relentless pleasure seeking and entertainment, while their focus was relentless power seeking. Okay, so that's how we got to this point. Okay, and it's the same in Israel as it is in the other Western countries. Okay, and I'm singling out the Western countries because people from the Eastern countries are different than us. Yeah. They're more barbaric. They have a lower consciousness than we do. Of course, there's individuals in the East who don't fit that description. Like, what, they probably more like Western people in their mind and in their consciousness. But the vast majority of people in China and the Arab world, they don't understand what we understand. They're an older version of human consciousness. Okay, a version that accepts brutality, barbarism, okay, as part of life. Okay, folks, how is it that every Muslim village in Muslim countries has a head chopper? Sometimes more than one. Do you think that we could, if you were to go around America or Canada, right, before the influx of savages from those countries, that you would find a person who would be willing to cut somebody's head off with a dull knife? Somehow every village, when they see a heretic, right, they no problem finding somebody like that. This is Truth Fanatics, isn't it? Folks, you won't find that in the Western world, not even in Germany. And this is a Jew talking. Okay? You don't have head choppers. Okay? You'll find, like the Nazis, it was a big deal. They chopped off the heads of these 2 students early on in the Nazi. Yeah. Lowell talks about them, right? Yeah. And that was like, reverberated throughout the whole country. But even Nazis, they weren't, they'll shoot you, and they'll they'll freeze you to death, but they're not going to go there with a knife and
like ISIS.
Slowly cut somebody, really enjoying the agony of the person. How the fuck does the Muslim world have somebody like that in every village? They're fucking barbarians. Do you understand that? They're not the same as we are.
So
listen. So
I want to add to what you're saying.
My point is, I'm sorry, it's just like I'm so disgusted by what I saw. I literally cannot shake it off. You know?
Yeah. No, I get it.
So basically, that's a different type of human consciousness that perhaps existed in the past much more prevalently. Okay, they are barbarians, savages. They're not the same. Not the same. Your societies in the Western world, not the way they are now, but the way they started, elevated human consciousness. Do you understand that? And Jews had a lot to do with it too. Okay, when I say Western, I'm including the Jews, even the Jews who lived in the Arab countries, right?
Yeah.
They were the best part of those countries. They elevated these countries. Okay,
Correct.
And it's not just the Jews, but I'm saying I'm including Jews because we had a contribution to make the West what it was when it was good. Okay, especially the founding fathers, and I don't have to speak for them. You could, study John Adams and Washington and other founding fathers. They'll describe the Jewish contribution to the founding of this republic. Okay, not just money. I'm talking about philosophy.
Based on what you're saying, is it okay if I play a clip now that I think it's from yesterday or the day before? I can't remember. It's a campaign event for Ilhan Omar in Minnesota. I don't know if you'll be able to see this whole thing. I don't know if I can enlarge it. I really can't make it bigger. Just listen. If you could see the subtitles here.
قضيتنا إلهام معها قضية إلهام معها قضية مينيسوتا معها قضية غير مريكان.
It says the interest of Ilhan is not the interest of Ilhan. It's not the interest of the American people. It's not the interest of Minnesota. The interest of Ilhan is that of Somalia, the Somalian people in Somalia. Folks.
He's speaking Arabic, by the way, folks.
He's not Arabic. He's speaking Somalian. Folks, it doesn't really matter what he's speaking. He's not speaking English. He's speaking to the Somalian population of Minneapolis, Minnesota. Folks, these people are not here to represent America. They're not here to make America better. They are here to destroy it. They are here to destroy it. For the folks who are going to say, oh, you sound just like the people that are talking about the Jews. No, folks, the Jews have done everything possible to make the lands of which they have been guests better, even if they've, some aspects made mistakes or failed, but their intentions with them was to make France better, to make England better, to make America better, to make this better, to make Spain better. The king of the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire said, "How is Ferdinand a wise king if he impoverishes his country and enriches mine?" When he kicked out the Jews out of Spain and he sent them to the Ottoman Empire, because they acknowledge that we've made it better. When the Jews of the Republic of Georgia, Tbilisi, left the Soviet Union, the Georgians, or even after the Soviet Union collapsed, they got upset at the Jews for leaving because now their economy is going to collapse. Folks, right now, Marie Le Pen is about to take power in France, and the people that we're talking about are going berserk. They want to take over France, and she's what's standing in their, people like her standing in their way. The guy in Netherlands, Geert Wilders, same story. The lady in Italy, same story. Not that they have such a Muslim, they have an African more so issue. Well, it's Muslim really problem. England, they didn't make any changes, unfortunately. But it's happening. Germany is making the changes. Folks, these people are not here in the Western world to make it better. They're here to destroy it. We're telling you facts. We have nothing against individuals. If you're here, even if you are, so to speak, a Muslim or, I don't know, from those parts of the world, and you want to be in America to participate in what America is, if you want to participate in the experiment, fine. But if you're here to take it down, if you're here to convert people to Islam, if you're walking around going, Islam would make this country so much better, look what's going on here and there. No. Our founding fathers fought, just one more thing, Frank. Our founding fathers fought a battle against Islam, a military battle against Islam, the Barbary pirates, the Barbary coast. They knew exactly who, they even wrote about them, these people. There was a whole treatise they wrote about what Islam presents to the Western world.
Let's read it. What the hell?
We could read it. Yeah.
By the way, Somali is mostly Arabic. It's just an Arabic. It's a simple
dialect,
Arabic dialect. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Right. It sounds, if you heard it sounds a lot like Arabic because it is. Okay. So
of course, somebody, Yes Magazine, wrote about how Jefferson, was pro-Islam. Yeah. Okay. Sure. Oh yeah. Explicitly included Islam. Library of Congress. The Quran influenced the founding.
Okay, yeah. This is see, folks. Look, communism.
The Washington Post
has put on a kafia.
Yeah.
Do you understand that? Hamas are really communists, and beneath, they're using Islam as an exterior, but really the people behind Hamas and Hezbollah and all this other shit, the militant Islams, they're just communists.
Yeah.
Okay. And communists, they lie about everything, literally everything, and they'll change history at the drop of a hat. So
if you read this article, now I write in, I typed in, instead of just founding fathers in Islam, I wrote founding fathers Islam, barbary. And the first article you get is an article by Christopher Hitchens in City Journal, and he talks about, it's entitled Thomas Jefferson versus the Muslim Pirates. America's first confrontation with the Islamic world helped forge a nation's character. But I want to hear here.
Hold on, there's a Washington Post thing that says Thomas Jefferson and the long history defending Muslims' rights.
Well, the Quran.
This is Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who is one of the main leaders of the communist push in this world right now. Yeah. And you can't even read it without paying for this garbage. No, thank you. Yeah. Okay, let's see.
Here you go. Middle East. We read this already. Middle East Forum. America's first brush with Islamic Jihad. Folks, before I read this, I want to say one more thing that I forgot to say. To anybody who is for women's rights on any level, whether your ideas are misguided or legitimate, if you're a person who just comes out and says, I'm for women's rights, you should be fighting Islam with every last bit of your strength. You literally should be like protesting, not in front of the Israeli consulate. You should be protesting in front of, if you're like yesterday, they just had those parades, LGBTQ. All those people should be going in front of the mosque, the biggest mosque in their city, screaming for LGBTQ rights.
Yeah.
In front of the mosque.
By the way, the more I learn, I'm just on a side point. The more I learn about Thomas Jefferson, the more he becomes my least favorite founding father. Because not just that, but I was reading a lot about his early involvement in the French Revolution. Only after he saw the 100th, he saw the 100th head be chopped off by the guillotine, did he say to himself, I don't know, maybe this isn't the best idea. He was the dumbest founding father, folks. The dumbest. Okay? So not impressed.
Relatively the dumbest. Yeah, they were all like geniuses.
Right. So listen. So can I read this? This is from libertarianism.org.
Oh. Okay.
Which doesn't mean that, folks. I used to consider myself a libertarian until I found out their policy on open borders, which made them complete morons to me. Okay. So, but I don't. So just because it's on libertarianism.org doesn't mean that I fully automatically accept everything said here. But let's just read it and see what our instinct tells us. Okay. Okay. It's libertarianism.org. It's titled Islam, Tolerance, and Thomas Jefferson. Okay, so this is June 29th, 2017. So it says, it might come as a surprise. Sorry, this is written by Michael Rieger. Michael, he has a BA from the University of Michigan in history, specialization in East Asian history. Whatever, he's one of those guys. I assume he's a libertarian. I don't know. Okay, so it might come as a surprise to most readers that the first American presidential candidate accused of being a Muslim was not Barack Obama. In fact, the first such accusations occurred over 200 years ago, prior to Obama announcing his candidacy during the election of 1800, where supporters of the then President John Adams accused his opponent, Thomas Jefferson, of secretly being a Muslim. I can explain partly why. First of all, Jefferson, he rewrote the Christian gospel, and he removed any divinity associated with Jesus. He considered himself a Christian, but no Christian today who's like officially a Christian would consider Thomas Jefferson a Christian. He like literally, to him, Jesus was just a guy who was really good at being a moral person, and he was the best. To him, the best example of a human being living a moral life. And so that's the Jeffersonian Christian gospel. He rewrote it. So he was not very popular with Christians. Again, so Thomas Jefferson was accused of secretly being a Muslim. Jefferson, after all, was ambiguous about his own religious beliefs, rejecting clericalism and organized religion. He owned the Quran and previously stated that a Muslim with rights ensured to him by the Constitution could indeed become the president of the United States. Okay, so in the wake of President Trump's executive order banning immigration from 7 Muslim-majority countries and his earlier calls for a blanket Muslim ban, debate has raged about religious freedom in America and the degree to which Muslims are protected under the First Amendment. Those on the far right, okay, I'm not going to read this bullshit. I just want to see if there's any quotes. Those on the far right often contend that Islam is incompatible with democracy, Western civilization. Muslims, they argue, will undermine democratic institutions seeking to establish Sharia law, as is happening right now, by the way. I guess the right wing is correct. Okay, so this series of articles will trace, it's literally, there's Sharia law, folks, literally being enforced in England and Australia, and probably in some places in France right now. So the series of articles will trace. Dude, did you see that? Lauren, Lauren Southern?
Yes, sorry.
She went to some town in Australia that enforces Sharia law.
Okay.
So just so people know, I'm not making this up. Okay. Anyway, this series of articles will trace the development of religious freedom. All right. I don't know if he's gonna actually state any of the statements by the founding fathers about Islam. I don't.
Can I read? There's statements here in this article. We read this article before on Middle East Forum, America's First Brush with Islamic Jihad, by Raymond Ibrahim. If I could, I sent it in the private chat. It's cool if I read it. And there's statements about Islam, plenty of statements. So this article was written actually last year, in 2023. It says, exactly 237 years ago today, on March 28th, 1786, 2 of America's founding fathers documented the United States' first exposure to Islamic Jihad in an important letter to Congress. 1 year earlier, in 1785, Muslim pirates from North Africa, or Barbary, had captured 2 American ships, the Maria and the Dauphine, and enslaved their crews. In an effort to ransom its enslaved crew and establish peaceful relations, Thomas Jefferson and John Adams, then ambassadors to France and England, respectively, met with Tripoli's ambassador to Britain, Abdul Rahman Ajah. By the way, that song from the to the shores of Tripoli.
Do you remember Farrakhan? Farrakhan was complaining. He goes, "Why is Tripoli mentioned in this?" Well, because they kidnapped American ships. You fucking piece of shit. That's why.
Yeah. So he says, following this diplomatic exchange, the Americans laid out the source of Barbarary's hitherto inexplicable animosity in a letter to Congress. We took the liberty to make some inquiries concerning the grounds of their, Barbary's, pretensions to make war upon nations who had done them no injury, and observed that we considered all mankind as our friends, who had done us no wrong, nor had given us any provocation. The ambassador answered us that it was founded on the laws of their prophet, that it was written in their Quran that all nations who should not have acknowledged their authorities were sinners, that it was their right and duty to make war upon them wherever they could be found. Sounds like the Hamas charter, huh? And to make slaves of all they could take as prisoners, and that every Muslim, who should be slain in battle were sure to go to paradise. March 28th, 1786. Abdul had continued by smugly noting that Islam's law offers as an incentive more slaves to those who are first to board infidel vessels, and that the power and appearance of the seaborne jihadis, who reportedly always carried 3 knives, one in each hand and another in their mouths, so terrified their enemies that very few ever stood against them. One can only imagine that what the American ambassadors, who years earlier had asserted that all men were, quote, endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights, what I mentioned before, thought of their Muslim counterparts' answer. Suffice to say, because the ransom demanded was over 15 times greater than what Congress had approved, little came of the meeting. Centuries before preying on the newborn American nation's vessels, the Barbary states of Muslim North Africa, specifically Tripoli, Algiers, Tunis, have been thriving on the slave trade of Christians abducted from virtually every corner of coastal Europe, going as far as Britain, Ireland, Denmark, and Iceland. These raids were so successful that between 1530 and 1780, there were almost certainly 1 million and quite possibly as many as 1.25 million white European Christians enslaved by the Muslims of the Barbary coast, to quote historian Robert Davis. The treatment of these European slaves was exacerbated by the fact that they were Christian infidels. As Robert Playfair, born in 1828, who served for years as a consul to Barbary, explained, in almost every case, the European slaves were hated on account of their religion. 3 centuries earlier, John Fox, born in 1516, had written in his book of Martyrs, that in no part of the globe are Christians so hated or treated with such severity as in Algiers. The punishments these European slaves received for real or imagined offenses beggared description. Quote, if they speak against Muhammad, blasphemy, they must become Mohammedans or be impaled alive, continued Fox. If they profess Christianity again after having changed the Mohammedan persuasion, they are roasted alive as apostates, or thrown from the city walls and caught upon large sharp hooks on which they will hang until they expire. As such, when Captain O'Brien of the Dauphine wrote to Jefferson saying that our sufferings are beyond our expression or your conception, he was clearly not exaggerating. Back in Congress, some agreed with Jefferson that it would be more easy to raise ships and men to fight these pirates into reason than money to bribe them, including General George Washington. Quote, in such an enlightened, in such a liberal age, how is it possible that the great maritime powers of Europe should submit to pay an annual tribute to the little piratical states of Barbary? He wrote to a friend. Would to heaven we had a navy able to reform those enemies to mankind or crush them into non-existence. But the majority of Congress...
Can you reread that, please? And please remind us who said that? Slowly and loudly, as you
George Washington. He said he wrote to a friend, would to heaven we had a navy, would heaven permit us to have a navy able to reform those enemies to mankind, like they would just scare them into behaving normally, or crush them into non-existence. Or if they can't behave, we're just going to crush them. That's what Washington said. But the majority of Congress agreed with Adams. We ought not to fight them at all unless we determine to fight them forever. I mean, he was right. Considering the perpetual existential nature of Islamic hostility, Adams may have been more right than he knew, meaning he didn't want to send, he doesn't want to send troops or the Navy all the way across the world to go fight them there, meaning just keep them out of America. Right? I would venture to say he would agree to keep them out of America as much as possible. Congress initially decided to emulate the Europeans by placating and paying off the terrorists, though it would take years to raise the demanded ransom. Inevitably, however, hostilities again broke out, leading to the Barbary Wars, 1801 to 1805, again in 1815, but by now the U.S. had built 6 war vessels. Thus, the United States' first war, which erupted before it could even elect its first president and intermittently lasted some 30 years, was against Islam. And the latter had initiated hostilities on the same rationale that had been used to initiate hostilities for the preceding 1200 years against other places. Though most Americans are now unaware of their nation's first military conflict, references to it are common. The oldest paean of the U.S. Armed Forces, the Marines' hymn, boasts of fighting everywhere for right and freedom, including as far as to the shores of Tripoli. And the oldest U.S. military monument was made to honor those Americans who fought and died in the Barbary Wars. According to its plaque, quote, millions for defense, but not 1 cent for tribute became the rallying cry for this war. Meaning, we're gonna spend money to fight them. We're not gonna spend money to give them ransom. The turbaned heads of the vanquished enemy appear at the foot of the eagle-topped column. Folks, I want to find a picture of this. Needless to say, although the United States' oldest monument was for decades located inside the Capitol building, it now rests in the much less conspicuous faculty club of the Naval Academy in Annapolis. So they removed it and they moved it to Annapolis. In short, although the question of why do they hate us became immensely popular after 9/11, it was actually answered during America's founding, including through a little remembered letter to Congress 238 years ago today. Rabban Ibrahim, the Judith Friedman Rosen Fellow at the Middle East Forum. So let's look for this column, Annapolis column, let's see, Barbary War. Here we go.
You know, Thomas Jefferson, he's like one of those guys. He'd be like, you know, queers for Palestine until he went to visit Palestine and saw queers fly off of buildings. He goes,
yeah,
maybe I was wrong about this. You know, like that's exactly what happened during him in the French Revolution.
Yep,
it's the same people. The Jacobins of the French Revolution and Hamas are the same people.
Yeah. So here's the Tripoli monument, but I'm trying to see. It says there's a turbaned heads of the vanquished enemy appear at the foot. So where would that be? I'm looking for the turbaned heads. I see the monument, but I don't really see. Maybe they purposely take a picture. The picture's not to show these heads. Let's see. Tripoli. Hey, come on. Okay. Here you see, here's the Library of Congress. Appear at the foot. So these are the... no, it's Tripoli, Greece. 1 second. Annapolis. I just want to show folks, at least show the monument, what it is.
I want to see this.
Yeah, no. This is... here's the monument itself. But I'm looking for and I can't find what he's talking about. This is the monument. Oh, here are the heads. You see the heads? Here's the eagle. You see the eagles thing? Here, eagle.
There they are.
And there are the heads of the folks.
And this, again, what is the name of this monument?
The Tripoli Monument. This is exactly
where is this monument located?
It's in Annapolis, at the Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland.
And where was it before?
It was in the Capitol. It was moved. Amazing, huh?
In Washington, D.C. That's where.
Yeah. I once played hockey.
Those are the severed heads of Muslim enemies. Is that what that means?
Yeah, that's exactly what this is. What these are. Yeah, there you go. The turbaned heads of the vanquished enemy appear at the foot of the eagle-topped column. Folks,
they were so disgusted with the savagery that was inflicted upon the captives, right? Their captives, that they could not tolerate the existence of people like this.
Yeah.
God bless the United States Marine Corps. Hopefully they come to their senses and they get back to their original charter of protecting America.
Our friend Eric lives in a particular part of Brooklyn where he attends synagogue, and all around him, we like to say that he lives in the American version of like a settlement. All around him are Muslims from Yemen who have come to basically take over the neighborhood. They built a very, very big mosque in that neighborhood, which actually the you know, the people in the neighborhood, there was a whole like city council battle, or local council battle, and of course money talks. And I remember I actually went there for Shavuot, and little 7-6-year-old kids come up to us, free Palestine, free Palestine. Adults don't do that. They send the kids to go do that. So what are you gonna do? You're gonna hit a kid? And Baruch Hashem, Eric is leaving that neighborhood, but his parents are staying because they've been there for years. I don't think they should, but that's a different conversation.
At least they'll have some place to go when they realize they can't.
Yeah, for sure. But folks, it's just, and the funniest part, it's not so funny, but Rebbe Mizrahi has entire lectures about this. Why do Muslims, when they come to America, follow the Jews? Why they go to Jewish neighborhoods? Because they know they're not going to get pig there. They know everything. Because if it's kosher, it's for sure halal. If it's halal, it's not kosher. But if it's kosher, it's halal. And it's Ishmael. He follows us. Everywhere we go, they follow. There's a whole lecture about it.
To kill us.
To kill, yeah. To take over or do this. Folks, you go to Paterson, New Jersey today. It's one of the most Muslim cities in America. It used to be one of the most Jewish cities in America. There's still a giant synagogue there, which is now not used. There's a Star of David on it. You can barely make it out. I mean, listen, our sages told us that the last exile would be called the exile of Ishmael. And frankly, the argument that these folks like to make, the ones who are pushing Aliyah, none of them have said, and I agree, there's not going to be a Holocaust in America. There will not be. What there could be is just our cousins making our lives very, very, very uncomfortable. We see that now. This is what they're doing. They're making our lives very, very uncomfortable, to the point where we're just like, okay, we're either we're going to stay and fight, or we're going to see that it's just literally too many of them. You just get overwhelmed. And that's it. It's time to go home, or time to move at least elsewhere, if not go home entirely. But our founding fathers understood what the problem was.
I'm debating whether or not to show the video of the guy.
I don't think you should, Frank, because you sent it to me and you told me not to look at it.
I would tell you to look away, and I'd send a warning to the folks at home about the extreme graphic, because this is uncensored murder footage of a guy being beheaded by Muslims. I mean, I honestly don't, because people listening to this I don't think that certainly a lot of people listening to this, they already hate Jews, and they think that we're slandering people. They won't listen to anything we say anyway. But for those who are interested in the reality, you just don't know the reality. You can't imagine that people like this exist. It might be better for you to see it for yourself, to know that they exist. That's the only function, the only reason why. And folks, I'm not just singling out Muslims. This is what all Gnostic fruitcakes are like. This is what savages in general are like. This is what the Mexican cartels are like. This is what beasts. There are beasts among mankind, and they thrive in certain type of cultures and certain type of religions. Okay, and I'm not just singling out Muslims, but I think Muslims have the lion's share of these people in the world right now. People who don't have a soul that was touched by the Hebrew Scripture. I consider most Christians among people whose soul and mind has been touched by the teachings of Abraham. I don't agree with the way you Christians see God with a Trinity. I don't agree about how you feel about this guy Jesus, right? But there's enough overlap, and there's enough teachings within Christianity that overlap with the teachings of Abraham that I believe you've been affected enough to understand that this kind of savagery is not just wrong, but it is impossible to be this way. You understand? It's like we're not the same species with people who can do stuff like this or who can tolerate it. Okay. So I don't know if many of you even are familiar with the horror and the reality of this. Maybe if you see this, then
Frank, I just want to let you know we have 15 people watching us on. I decided to stream this on YouTube, and I think if you play it, YouTube might just take it down.
Well, you know how I feel about YouTube, Greg.
I understand, but I mean, are actually loyal, so to speak, listeners that have jumped on YouTube.
Guys, can you please
go to Rumble?
Can you please go to Rumble?
Yeah.
Go to Cloud Hub. We want Cloud Hub to be successful, right? But we're not. If we're ever gonna make anything off of these podcasts at all, right? I think in the short term, it might be through Rumble.
Yeah.
So if you can please watch us on Rumble. And that would be very helpful to us if you just at least watch us and follow us on Rumble. Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man.
Play it. Play
maybe
it.
You know what? Maybe I could just provide the link. We won't show it on the show, maybe, but just if you could show my Twitter.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll
I'm not gonna.
Frank's.
Yeah, I'm not going to subject people to this.
Frank's Twitter handle is Frank_Zelenko.
You know what? I'm gonna share it. Oh man, I got to log into this.
So post it on the private chat.
Send you the link. Can you just
post it in the private chat?
1 second. I apologize for this, folks. I think this one guy complained. Somebody who usually writes positive things to my posts.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, this should not be on Twitter. I'm going to report it.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote to him, why? Because people might actually come in touch with reality and prepare for it. Is that your problem?
Yeah.
Hang on. I still can't believe. I just can't believe that.
Our friend is writing, for perspective, I saw a beheading video back in 2010. They've been around, and anyone who hasn't seen one at this point watching this probably has consciously avoided it, which I've done since then.
I'm not forcing you, folks. We're not going to play it here. I'm just going to present the link. So you go to my. Oh, that's the wrong one. Sorry. Hang on.
You want to put the link where? On the bottom?
I just want to show people. Put it up on screen for a second. Don't worry, it's not going to show the.
But where did you? Oh, your.
I'm going to copy the link. Hold on. Just give me a second. Put it up on. If you can put.
Yeah, it's just Frank_Zelenko, and then you go to.
Nobody's going to visit. Can you present it for a second on the screen so they could see my the name of the account and the link itself, so they can recognize it? Because it's not the first link. They have to scroll down a little bit.
Yeah.
Can you put it up on screen for a second?
Oh, here you go. Oops. Yeah, uncensored murder footage. Most of you gentle souls don't understand the reality of Islam. If you tell me that there are other types of Islam, perhaps they don't dominate. This is what old Biden is bringing here. You must prepare for these demons. Okay.
Show the first part of the video. We're not going to show. This is a Hindu that that these Muslims caught, and this
video will shake your soul. Such a brutal murder, brothers. There's still time. Europeans save your country. It's a Hindu guy. Otherwise, people will have a worse fate than when Hindus are facing in India. With you, you will have a worse than Then India, in a country where the population of Muslims has reached 15%, this is bound to this is a critical mass of people. I mean, I don't know if I should even play this.
Play the first part. I just want to see, like.
No. This is unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable. Basically,
Keep going a little bit
Keep
more. Just a little bit more. Okay, turn it off now. Turn it off now.
incredible. Folks, Obama went to a madrasa as a kid. You see those kids, those little kids? They're madrasa kids. Obama went to a madrasa in Indonesia until he was 8. Can I play, folks, on here? Madrasa. Obama talking about. There you go. Childhood. Obama, childhood in Indonesia. Here. There's a phrase where he's talking about the, the muezzin, the call of the muezzin.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. First, we could watch Obama. There's a clip where he talks about the Cairo speech, that famous speech that he made. Hey, crap, not this.
Or the apology speech.
Well, it's a speech right here. It was a long speech, but he talks about how it was long. Here you go.
In on the wisdom of building a mosque a couple of blocks from Ground Zero. We know that the organizers have the constitutional right. What would it say about this country if they were somehow talked out of doing that? And hasn't the Florida minister's threat to burn a couple hundred copies of the Quran, hasn't the threat itself put American lives in danger, sir?
Well, on the second, on your second question, there's no doubt that when someone goes out of their way to be provocative in ways that we know can inflame the passions of over 1 billion Muslims around the world. We've got our troops in a lot of Muslim countries. That's a problem. It has.
But inflaming the passions of 14 million Jews, it's okay.
This guy is such a fucking disgusting garbage piece of shit. I can't stand the sight of him, or I can't stand the sound of his voice. I can't stand that he exists. I can't stand that I have fellow Americans who actually voted for this scumbag. You fucking retards.
And who are pro-Israel and think that this guy's pro-Israel.
Dude,
life
that's what I'm talking about.
A lot more difficult for our men and women in uniform who already have a very difficult job.
Blah, blah, blah. Okay. I wanted him to talk about the muezzin. Actually, here. But he's giving an answer, like a short answer.
Why aren't you scared of inflaming all the Americans by building a mosque right on Ground Zero?
Religious motives.
Yeah.
And if you do, why do you still refuse to use the term Islamic terrorist?
What I have been careful about when I describe these issues is to make sure that we do.
Okay, they just cut it off. Okay. Anyway, oops. I need to find the quote. Obama. I need to find the video.
I want people to understand the connection between communists and Muslim terrorists. I'm going to show you some pictures. Can you find pictures of Spanish communists, nuns' bodies? What they did with the body?
Spanish communists, what?
Google communist Spanish nuns' bodies. See what happens. Communists, Spanish communists, and the
Mm.
bodies of nuns.
It says Spain during the Civil War, communists dug up the bodies of nuns and put them on display for mockery. Chopped off the hands of priests, murdered thousands of nuns, priests, and monks.
Could you show some of the pictures?
Unbelievable. This we could show because this is like kind of unbelievable. Just unbelievable.
They dug up a body of a nun just to take pictures with it and to denigrate,
Yeah.
to desecrate.
Absolutely unbelievable.
Show more. Show as many as you can, like as big as possible. People need to
Yeah.
understand the reality of communists are just as sick and barbaric as Muslim terrorists, as Muslims. Just basically any Muslim that finds it okay to chop somebody's head off or rape somebody
Yeah.
or anything of that nature because their religion tells them it's okay, or for any reason.
Yes. This is a nun. Unbelievable.
Show
And
us
this-
more. Just
Yeah.
not an
I'm just-
isolated incident.
so this is also
and this is
nuns.
mild compared to what they did in Russia and in China and
Yeah. This is incredible. Yeah, you can see.
those aren't statues.
And they're not statues, they're bodies. Dude, this is nuts. Like I
It's
never
not good enough, folks. It wasn't good enough for them just to murder priests and nuns, right? And again, I'm a Jew. I don't agree with the religion of those priests and nuns.
Yeah. It's called the Red Terror. See, they're shooting
But yeah, show
a statue of like a Virgin Mary. Now you could say, like, Jews could say, "What do you care? This is like Asaph against Asaph." Folks,
Who
they're
the fuck
they're
says that? I don't know a single Jew that says
more.
that.
I know a lot of guys in Israel that say that. Unfortunately,
How many guys, Greg? How many? I'm challenging. I'm pushing back. How many?
I can't give you that number, but they
it
all
five?
no, it's not 5. It's more than 5. They all attend the
10?
particular. They're all
Name them.
They all. I'm not gonna name the guys.
Name them. No,
I'm not gonna name them.
you don't have to.
They
tell
all
me that.
attend a particular yeshiva, Frank.
Greg.
Unfortunately.
Greg, I know a lot of different Jews. I'm a Jewish guy. I know a lot of different Jewish people. Okay, if that's what I experienced from all the different types of Jews that I come in contact with, and I'm speaking about religious Jews, right?
Mhm.
If that was common, that sentiment that you described,
No, I'm not saying it's common. I'm saying it's. I've heard from these guys.
it's not a
not
lot of
common.
people. It's
No.
there's always unfortunately a rotten apple. But when we're talking about things, we're talking about generally. What are people like? What are certain populations like? What are certain cultures like? Our culture doesn't promote what these guys that are saying.
No.
Our Torah doesn't teach that. If we have a couple of idiots who say stuff like that, that's an unfortunate thing, but it doesn't represent us. It really doesn't.
You're right.
There are people who say,
not saying it
"Oh,
represents us."
like for instance, there are Islamists who say, "Oh, well, ISIS doesn't represent us," but they're lying. That's the problem. That's the difference.
Yeah.
No, the Nazis said what you guys are saying. Yeah, but they were lying. You understand? The Nazis, the Jews never chopped their heads off or raped German women or cut their hands off or burned them alive or flayed their skin off or beheaded their babies. Jews never did that to Germans. Okay? Folks, oh, the Nazis, they use toilet paper. Maybe we shouldn't use toilet paper. Do you understand? Like these comparisons are retarded.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. It's like the people who decree Rabbi Kahana. He's just saying what the Nazis said, except for, he's talking about the Jews should, not have Arabs. And
I hate liars. I hate them. Even those who aren't, they don't think that they're actually lying consciously. I hate them. I hate people who make statements like that because they weren't careful enough to look it up and they just regurgitated some nonsense. I include those type of people with blatant liars. Okay?
Yeah, Red Terror. Terror Rojo.
Show it, please.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. No, it's just a different things. It's I never really got into the weeds of what happened in Spain. Nobody talks about it on purpose.
It's mild compared to what happened in Cambodia and
Yeah,
Asia
yeah.
and in Russia.
Yeah.
Mild.
Look at this crap. There are the bodies that they dug up. Combat footage. Yeah, okay.
Show like 10 of these different ones.
Yeah, it's more graves that dug up. This is really the same thing. Yeah, Spanish nuns, martyrs of the Red Terror, tortured and killed for their faith.
Tortured, raped, and murdered.
Yeah. Folks, it wasn't just like, you hear about like people who are leftists in America. They're like, let's say they take, they want to take, the whole under God thing out of schools because it's like offensive. It wasn't just like they're here in America where they're just like offended by religious stuff. It was like, I mean, it probably started out that way in Europe, but it ends up in what we just showed you. Which is why you see these governors in all these states, they're putting the Ten Commandments back into the, government buildings. And they want to teach the Bible in schools because you see what happens when you just you give these people an inch.
Folks, if America is going to survive and is going to get another opportunity to live, right? Let's say, Trump gets back into office. To ensure that something like what happened in this country doesn't happen again, there has to be a cultural, not some kind of government agency, but it has to be a cultural movement.
Yeah.
Intolerance towards communists.
Yeah.
To the extent that the law allows. People, regular citizens, we have to harass communists as much as possible. To make America as inhospitable for them to exist here. We can't legally beat them. We can't legally murder them, right? But whatever the law allows, right, has to be exercised to its absolute fullest. Whatever laws we have, we have to prove that they are a menace to our republic, and it needs to be constantly in the forefront. Like people need to, for instance, like Paul Revere, right? The redcoats are coming.
Yeah.
Okay. Somehow we have to start a cultural, I'm not going to say revolution, but a cultural campaign to make Americans understand that communists are behind everything bad that's going on in this country. And I don't give a fuck if some of those communists are Jews. I don't care. They are
with Jewish last names.
It doesn't matter to me. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Their communism removed their Judaism.
Supplanted. Yeah, I love when they tell us, "Oh, you see some of those kids in the campuses. How can you say that everybody's threatening Jews if the kids on campuses are protesting are Jewish? So what? So what?"
Trump, listen. One thing I think my favorite thing that Trump said in the whole debate was when he called Schumer a Palestinian.
It was amazing. Not Schumer, he called him Biden.
Folks, Palestinian.
Biden and Palestinian.
Communist. No, he called Schumer a Palestinian.
Did he?
Yeah, he
Really?
did.
I thought he called Biden a Palestinian and it says that Palestinians are upset at you.
I know, no, but he called Schumer a Palestinian. He said 100%. I'm not mixing 100%. There's no. I'm definitely right for sure. 100% guaranteed. You don't even.
That was the rally, post-debate rally. Trump says Chuck Schumer is Jewish, but he was become a Palestinian.
I think he said it during the debate too.
No. He said it at Biden, and he said that they're upset at you because you're not even a good Palestinian. He called it at Biden, but then in the rally after the debate, here, this is what he said.
As every American saw firsthand last night, this election is a choice between strength and weakness, competence and incompetence, peace and prosperity, or war or no war. They like a war. They love wars. They love killing people. It's so wonderful. I'm the only president in many, many decades that didn't start a war. I finished one. I beat ISIS in record time. As soon as I left, we had the situation where Russia went into Ukraine. They would have never done that. And where Israel's attacked. And then we had inflation. And then we had that horrible, horrible event that took place in Afghanistan. The worst, I think the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And it's a choice, though, between a president who puts America first or a train wreck who puts America last. They put America last. Actually, the Democrats put America last. You take a look at that. Look at a guy like Senator Schumer. I've always known him. I've known him a long time. I come from New York. I knew Schumer. He's become a Palestinian. He's a Palestinian now. Congratulations. He was very loyal to Israel and to Jewish people. He's Jewish, but he's become a Palestinian because they have a couple of more votes or something. Nobody's quite figured it out. A vote for Joe Biden is a vote for failure, surrender.
I figured it out.
For our country. A vote for.
All right. Can we get back to the point?
Yeah.
So basically, folks, why is Schumer all of a sudden turned against Israel and Jews? Because he's never a Jew. He's a communist. Do you understand that? A communist seeks power. A communist doesn't care about God. A communist doesn't care about ethics. A communist just seeks to stay in power. He'll do and say anything. He'll betray anyone. He'll sell his own mother. He doesn't care. He doesn't have a mother. Do you understand? That he's a communist. Communists don't have mother. They only have the state. They have power and the state. That's it. Okay? So you cannot be a Jew and a communist. Palestinians are communists.
Yeah.
They're communists. It's a communist invention. Literally, the KGB invented the Palestinian.
Yeah.
Arabs rejected Palestinian identity until the 60s.
Yeah.
The 60s, folks. Yasser Arafat studied at Patrice Lumumba University in Russia. Okay,
That's
he was
why
trained by the KGB. Greg told you this a million times.
I always tell people, be careful when you're around Arabs in Israel, because it could be that, the older generation, if you're ever in the Shuk in Jerusalem, it could be that they speak Russian. Be careful speaking Russian around those guys.
Folks,
yeah.
the Hebron massacre, right? That was in 1929, where that entire town of Jews and that yeshiva, they were butchered by Arab terrorists. They were communists, and it was ordered by Stalin.
Really? I never knew about that.
Rabbi Antelman writes about it. Yeah, folks, there's a direct partnership between this type of Islam, this political Islam, right? That's been kind of spreading out through the Western world, okay, and communism.
So this is an article I want to read on Israel National News. It's from 2020. Daniel Greenfield, this guy. He has a blog called Sultan Knish, and it's called "The Communist Paper That Praised Hebron Massacre Gets a Makeover." A former communist rag was relaunched under a former deputy director of J Street U. J Street is the Arab organization that pushes for the two-state solution. They have a university, a campus kind of arm, to try to appeal to Israel-hating millennials. That means fewer historical pieces, more current hatred of Israel. So he writes, on the Bloody Sabbath in 1929, a Muslim mob. Oh, okay, so he's talking about this. This is like a people talking about the. Okay, so they don't mention Stalin here. They're talking about how the Morgan Freiheit, the Communist Party's Yiddish newspaper in New York, headlined its article, "The Arab Uprising is Spreading. Zionist fascists have provoked the Arab uprising. This is not innocent blood. The communist paper insisted of the murdered religious students. It is the blood of people who went to war against other people on alien land." These are commies with Jewish last names writing about the Hebron massacre. A resolution praised the massacre of Jews as a revolutionary uprising of the Arab masses in Palestine. The Freiheit even held the rallies in support of the mass murder, rapes, and mutilations by its Muslim allies. Jewish communities in New York and Chicago reacted by burning copies of the Communist Rag and setting fire to the newsstands that sold it. Many Jewish newspaper sellers announced a boycott of Freiheit. No one would advertise in the paper, and buying it became a badge of shame. Anyone with the least bit of decency resigned. The remaining staff were expelled and reviled and even beaten in the streets. I never heard about this. Like other commie papers,
Thank God they were beaten in the street.
the Morgan Freiheit endorsed the Hitler-Stalin Pact. In response, the Jewish workers assaulted communists who tried to defend their alliance with the Nazis, calling them communazis and taunting them with chants of Heil Hitler. Even Freiheit staffers who had defended the massacre of Jews in Hebron began to drop out of the communist paper. 80 years after the Hitler-Stalin Pact, Bernie Sanders wrote an editorial, How to Fight Anti-Semitism, for the Freiheit's latest incarnation, Jewish Currents. The magazine had not run in Yiddish for a long time, and officially was no longer communist. Instead, you could see articles like In Defense of Marxism, Raya Dunayevska and Marxist Humanism, Marxism with a human face, and Why I'm Still a Marxist. It was perfect for Bernie. Like his Stalinist predecessors, Bernie stuck to the party line and pretended that there was no such thing as leftist or Islamist anti-Semitism. He didn't mention his position on the Hitler-Stalin Pact. The former communist magazine had gotten a major relaunch last year under Jacob Plittman, a former deputy director of the anti-Israel group J Street U, to try and appeal to millennials who hate Israel. That meant fewer historical pieces about old communists and Marxists and more current hatred of Israel. The reboot was funded by the Puffin Foundation, run by the Rosensteins, who also work with The Nation. Now Jewish Currents is going back to its roots by bringing in Peter Baynard, who called the murder of Jews by Islamic terrorists violent resistance. By the way, folks, in case you're wondering, this is a Jewish guy, a normal Jewish guy, writing this about these psychos. Terrorism, he had urged, was a response to Israel's denial of basic Palestinian rights. And he suggested that the Israeli government is reaping what it's sowed. Baynard is certainly reaping what he sowed as his career tumbles down into the media sewer. In 2012, Baynard had partnered with the Daily Beast to launch Open Zion, an anti-Israel blog. It closed a year later after failing to find an audience for its hate. Baynard moved on to Haaretz, a red rag whose racist publisher urged international pressure to end Israeli apartheid, whose Worldview's editor boasted that he is anti-Zionist, and whose former editor had urged Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice to rape Israel. It had always been my wet dream to see this happen, the leftist told her. Is there anywhere lower Baynard? After Haaretz, he appeared on The Forward, or called The Backward, the Morgan Freiheit's old rival, which runs headlines like 3 Jewish moguls among 8 who own as much as half the human race, and why we should applaud the politician who said Jews controlled the weather. There, he accused Holocaust survivor Elie Wiesel of being blind to the harm Jews cause. Last year, The Forward dumped its editor and cut 40% of its staff. Instead of taking the advice of Haman's wife, Baynard doubled down and joined its old, even more anti-Semitic commie rival. I think a tremendous need for a kind of American progressive Jewish publication, Baynard babbled, explained that he wanted to confront what I see as the kind of moral corruption of the American Jewish establishment and its complicity in various ways with some of the things that Trump is doing and the direction that Netanyahu is taking Israel. The only moral corruption of 91 years of communists, Marxists, and lefties justifying the murder of Jews. The Hebron massacre had been urged on by the Mufti of Jerusalem, Haj Amina Husseini, later popularly known as Hitler's Mufti of his meetings with the Nazi leader and alliance with the Third Reich. The Mufti, an ally of Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, paved the way for the Muslim Brotherhood's arms in Israel, which include Hamas. The Syrian Islamist terror leader Izz ad-Din al-Qassam, a Mufti ally whose Black Hand group carried out attacks against Jews in Israel, became the model for Hamas, its Izz ad-Din al-Qassam brigades. Baynard spent the last decade promoting ties to Hamas. In 2009, he had hailed Hamas as U.S. diplomacy's final frontier. In 2011, he insisted a shift in U.S. Israeli policy toward Hamas is long overdue. Last year, he compared Israel's blockade of Hamas to Hiroshima and Soviet gulags. There is a sense of history coming full circle as Jewish Currents, the magazine twice renamed and spun off the Morgan Freiheit, returns to its folly. As King Solomon wrote, a dog returns to its vomit. The Morgan Freiheit had been the communist rival to The Forward, a socialist paper, but one that nonetheless opposed the Islamist massacres of Jews in 1929 and the Hitler-Stalin Pact. In those days, any leftist with a shred of conscience or decency had left the Freiheit and the Communist Party for more moderate publications and organizations. Some even became patriots and conservatives. Baynard has traveled the opposite road. Back in his New Republic days, he wrote After September 11th, the left has proved remarkably creative over the years at blaming virtually any Middle Eastern malfeasance on the Jewish state. Then he became the hack that he was describing to advance his career. So he you understand, right? After decades of blaming everything on the Jewish state, the crisis of Boehnertism has arrived. Once upon a time, Boehnert was touted as the elderly anti-Israel by the elderly anti-Israel donors and their organizations as the young voice of the new generation. But the voice of a new generation is pushing 50 and scrambling in the political basement to revamp an ancient communist magazine as the voice of a new generation. Boehnertism has taken on the opposite route of Jewish intellectuals who left the Communist Party for the New Republic. Instead, Boehnert left the New Republic for the Reds. What's next for the leading anti-Israel pundit in America? Al Jazeera, Jacobin, Pravda. And yet Boehnert isn't entirely wrong about the moral crisis in the Jewish community. When the communist newspaper that was his current platform's predecessor defended the Islamic murder of Jews, it was boycotted. Its leading figures were driven out of Jewish organizations. Its offices were besieged. 91 years later, Boehnert knows that he'll be invited to speak at conferences, organizations, and events. Nearly a century ago, Jewish workers who were just scraping by put their few pennies on the line to take a stand against the Freiheit. Now, Jewish currents will be circulated by the Jewish establishment groups. After the Hitler-Stalin Pact, Peretz Markish, a leftist Jewish poet in the Soviet Union, met up with an old friend of his. The latter showed Peretz an editorial written by Moshe Nadir, once a leading figure in the Morgan Freiheit, who had declared that he was leaving the communist paper after the Hitler-Stalin Pact. Moshe Nadir has revealed that he raised a snake around his neck, Marcus replied. Only he nourished the snake around his neck, only he alone, and maybe all of us weaned the snake, and a time may come when this full-grown snake will choke all of us. Yes, if he keeps it going like this, like it's been going, the time will come that the snake wrapped around our necks will choke us. A few years later, he joined the Communist Party. 4 years later, he received the Stalin Prize. A decade after that original conversation, he was arrested and charged with being a Jewish nationalist. In 1952, he was secretly executed. 2 decades later, Esther Markish, his widow, wrote a courageous open letter imploring for international pressure on the Soviet Union to allow her to leave for Israel. Help us, our writers, the conscience of our people. Help us to return to the soil of our holy homeland. There are 2 sides, the side of the snake of Boehnert, of the Morgan Freiheit and Jewish currents, and the side of those who will be choked by the snake in Hebron, in Moscow, and New York City. When we pay dues to an organization or a synagogue that invites Boehnert, when we subscribe to a magazine that publishes him, when we, like that long-dead poet, are feeding the snake. Once upon a time, the Jews were outraged when the murder of their people was excused and defended. Today, they continue attending synagogues, paying dues, and funding the establishment that invites the defenders of their murderers to appear on panels, speak at podiums, and sell their books. That is the true moral corruption of the American Jewish establishment, and it is unforgivable.
Folks, something that you guys don't know, and we've spoken about it, there's been an internal civil war, within the Jewish people, probably since the exodus of Egypt. There are essentially two factions. There's the Jews, and then there's the part called the Erev Rav. And in the old Hebrew scripture, in the Hebrew scripture, they're referred to as the mixed multitude, right? Without getting into the details, this, in its modern incarnation, right? This mixed multitude has, when I say modern, I mean the last 300 years, right? They have, they come from a sect which broke off from the Jewish people in the 1600s, and this sect was founded by somebody, by actually a Sufi mystic, an Islamic Sufi mystic posing as a Jew who presented himself as a rabbi. His name was Shabtai Tzvi. He was born in Turkey, and he successfully, unfortunately, duped a lot of Jews into thinking that he was the Messiah, and they followed him. He said he was leading them to Israel, and Jews from Europe and from the Middle East, and some figures say it was almost, hundreds of thousands followed him. I've heard people say maybe even almost approaching 1 million were following him. Jews who dropped everything. They sold all they sold their homes. They left their villages in Europe and Turkey and other places behind, and they followed this guy. And then when they got to Turkey, because you have to pass through Turkey to get to Israel, right, from Europe, the Ottoman Sultan of that time captured Shabtai Tzvi and said that if you don't convert to Islam, I'll chop your head off. So he converted to Islam. Obviously, whatever followers Shabtai Tzvi had at that time, the vast majority of them broke off. They realized that he was false, and they were devastated. The impact this guy had on the Jewish community, especially in Europe, cannot be overstated. He was one of the worst disasters in the history of the Jewish people. However, he had a small group of loyal fanatics who stayed with him no matter what. And so they started a religion called Sabbateanism. And Sabbateanism is just really the same Gnostic order that existed before, that existed within Islam and within Christianity, right? Usually these are antinomian orders within these other religions, right? Like Sufism in Islam, and some say the Jesuits are in Christianity, Catholicism, and also like Freemasonry and Rosicrucianism and stuff like that. These are all Gnostic orders, right? So the Jews, we never had our Gnostic breakaway cult until the 1600s. Okay, so from all these Gnostic religions, Sabbateanism is like the youngest of them all, but really it's just a facsimile of what was before. It's essentially Sufism, okay, and they dressed it up with Jewish words and stuff like that. But the people from this religion, right? It took a while for them to influence the main body of the Jewish people enough for the leaders of the Jewish people to get so alarmed about this that they excommunicated all the followers of Shabtai Tzvi. And I don't know what excommunication means in Christianity or in Islam. I don't even know if Islam has excommunication. But in 1756, the rabbis, the head rabbis of the four lands, which were where most of the Jews were located in the world.
It's called the Arba Artsot in Hebrew. Yeah, the Council of the Four Lands.
I believe it was Poland, White Russia, Lithuania.
And, Ukraine?
Ukraine? I would wager the fourth was Ukraine. Yeah.
They're Council of the Four. They'll just so people.
And these are the head Jewish religious figures in each of those countries. They're all near each other. That's where the main body of the Jewish people were located at that time. And so all the followers of Shabtai Tzvi were excommunicated. And this was precisely in the year 1756.
It's called, the Four Lands were Greater Poland, Little Poland, Galicia, which is like today kind of like Western Ukraine, and then Volhynia, which is like...
Yeah, the names of countries are a little different back then.
Belarus and area kind of, yeah.
But basically the area that we described, modern day, White Russia, Lithuania, Poland, and Ukraine. Those territories. Okay, so basically, they said when they found out about the activities of these Sabbateans, they said, this is the part of the official declaration. It says their wives and daughters are whores, and their children are bastards, and they are cut off from the Jewish people to the 10th generation.
Yeah.
When I first read those words, I thought, oh man, I guess maybe after 10 generations they could their descendants could rejoin the Jewish people. Nope. That expression, when the rabbis use that expression, to the 10th generation, is synonymous with eternity.
Yeah.
I don't think that's never happened before in the history of the Jewish people. The severity of the religious sins that these Sabbateans committed was so severe that they had to be cut off permanently. And it was primarily they had a ritual which they took from previous Gnostic cults, Sufism and other Gnostic cults, that to conceive children through adultery, specifically through adultery. So the Torah says that any child conceived through adultery cannot be part of the Jewish people.
Yeah.
He can't be considered part of the covenant of Israel.
Yeah.
Okay. And it says that explicitly in Hebrew scripture and in our oral tradition. In the Talmud, it says that. And so these people, in order to make sure that they don't mix with the Jewish population of not bastards, of people born through regular marriage, right? Husband and a wife, right?
Yeah.
So they needed to be excommunicated, which is incredible. So listen to this. If there was a guard at a Nazi concentration camp who enjoyed murdering Jewish prisoners, right? Beating them to death. And let's say he murdered 10,000 Jewish prisoners. And then somehow later in life, he's troubled by it. And he realized that he made a mistake, that he did very evil things, and he wants to repent. If he were to find an Orthodox rabbi who was merciful enough, right? And this guy, let's say, wanted to convert to become a Jew, technically speaking, he would be able to convert and become a Jewish person. A Nazi concentration camp guard who murdered thousands of Jews, now, realistically, he's not going to find any rabbi who's going to give him the time of day, because fuck that guy. But technically speaking, if there were to be such a rabbi who, whatever, determined that this guy really is sincere about being repentant, this guy could repent and convert and become Jewish. That guy, but not the followers of Shabtai Tzvi. They are permanent. They are the least Jew. They have no potential to be Jews at all. None.
Yeah.
It is the descendants of these people who became the leaders of the Jews, right? Who became the leaders of the communists, whatever Jews were involved in communism in Russia and in other places are the descendants of these people. So does that make sense? Because a lot of people listening to us are wondering, well, why do you have Jews who hate each other so much? Why how come you have commie Jews who seem to hate Israel and hate religious Jews? That's why, folks. Okay, in case anybody was wondering, I don't know. I'm not going to get more into it. But
and by the way, the Jews that you see, the so-called Jews, the Jewish last names that you see in these Obama and Biden administrations, they're the ones who are sabotaging Israel. They're the ones that are, you see this Blinken guy and.
Why do they hate? Why does he hate Israel so much? How come Thomas Friedman of the New York Times despises Israel to such an extent? Why do they all seem to be? Folks, that's why. To begin with, once they were excommunicated back in 1756, they were so enraged, right? This cult was so enraged by what happened that they began to actively create situations where regular Jewish villages were massacred by local authorities, by whether in Poland or in Lithuania or wherever they could possibly stir up trouble. For example, I've used this example several times, and Rabbi Anthelman, he writes about it, unfortunately, in his book too. Not unfortunately, it's unfortunate that it happened. It's good that he wrote about it. There's a town somewhere in Bohemia, which is like something like somewhere in Yugoslavia, former Yugoslavia, okay, around the Czech Republic, that area, okay, where there was a Jewish village next to a Catholic town, next to a town full of Catholic Yugoslavs, whatever, and they found the Sabbateans, this excommunicated faction, who was seeking the destruction of the Jews. Now, they found a lady who could be a clone of the wife of the rabbi of the Jewish village. So what they did was they dressed her up to dress like the rabbi, because he was a communal leader. His wife was also, a communal leader, so she was known in that area, right?
Yeah.
So they dressed this lady up like the rabbi's wife, head covered and kind of certain way of dressing, and they took this lady, and this lady went to the top Catholic religious figure in that area and told them that she witnessed her husband killing Christian children, something like that, or drinking their blood, or whatever these kind of like blood libel crap that they were peddling in those times. Okay. The result was they slaughtered the Jewish village, and they forcibly converted the rabbi's children to Christianity, to Catholicism. I don't remember if they forced his wife or they murdered her too. I don't remember, but that was the result. That's the kind of stuff that these Sabbateans did back in the 1700s and 1800s, and it just continued on bigger and bigger scales. So this is not information, folks, that you guys are going to be hearing like literally anywhere. All right, because you have two completely unfiltered Orthodox Jews who have a show, and we're telling you stuff that is not allowed to be spoken about on television or anything like that. They don't let people like us on TV. Okay,
Even the so-called religious podcast won't talk about this,
because first of all, like a lot of the religious Jews of today, right, are like a pale like reflection of our forefathers, and we're more like children. This last generation, we've said this before many times. They can't really. They learn a censored Torah, basically.
Yeah.
And they're essentially treated like children. If you ever meet like Orthodox Jews, right? You go to like let's say a kosher pizza shop, you're gonna hear like the Jewish version of like children's show, like Sesame Street music and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like, because the Jewish community, we have we have our own like children's shows and stuff like that, and
Mitzvah Man and all that stuff. Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
It's like this. Everybody. So the communal leaders, right, who know some of the stuff, they feel it's too graphic and too painful, and it would psychologically scar their congregants and their yeshiva students.
Yeah.
So they keep this stuff from them.
Yeah.
Keeping them ignorant and dumb and unprepared for
but the crazy part is that you'll come up to some of the rabbis, and they'll express to you, like even the rabbis in my yeshiva and other yeshivas, the more kind of what's called black hat yeshivas, even in Israel, they'll tell you, I'm not such a fan of the they will say it, fan of the Israeli government, or I'm not such a fan of the secular state, right? But they don't even get into why. Right? They just say it's against, these guys are against religion, and they don't get into why. They don't get into the weeds of this discussion like what you and I have, right? And if you come to people, and that's, by the way, why a lot of people in the religious community in America, if you come to them and you start talking to them about Aliyah, particularly in the black hat sectors in America, it's become less so, but it used to be very much like, go away with your Zionism talk, right? Because why? Because they perceive that it's ironic, right? Because we just talked about how the secular Jews, the secular establishment in Israel, doesn't want people like us to come to Israel, and yet when folks like myself and the people that I know who are pushing Aliyah come to the communities in America and say, guys, make Aliyah, they say, oh, we're not Zionists, we're not so Tzioni, they say.
Dude, you're always talking about like idiots. I know who you're talking
But they're
about.
not. But they're not idiots. This is a very listen. I had rabbis. I had rabbis in my yeshiva or in yeshivas in like a yeshiva called one of the main yeshivas for guys like us. Esha Torah and other yeshivas. You come up to them and you say, are you guys Zionists? They'll say, I used to be in the 70s, and then they joke. It's like a half joke by them, right? And then I woke up. And they're still in Israel. They still believe that Jews should be in Israel, but they're not in favor. They're not in favor of the state. For example, there's people who will say, for example, certain psalms on, Israeli Independence Day, they won't say them, or if they do say them, they won't say them with a. It's a whole thing, right?
Again,
it's this whole like weird thing.
Just for a second.
Yeah,
they're not in favor of this state.
Yeah,
They're
I
in
know,
favor of a state.
I know, but what I'm trying to tell you is, if I come to say a neighborhood like Flatbush or even a neighborhood like Crown Heights, and I start telling people, at best, to make Aliyah, at best they'll tell me, yeah, we know it's a mitzvah to live in Israel, and I tell them, it's not only because it's a mitzvah, right? I start telling them about all the things that are happening. I start telling them about maybe it's better now to leave before the rush. And it's funny that one of these, by the way, one of these Aliyah guys at the conference, he said, instead of pushing what's called blue and white Aliyah, we should start pushing black and white Aliyah, meaning come to people and say, it's a Torah thing, it's a mitzvah thing.
Black and white means the type of clothing that
garb,
Jews wear.
Yeah. So he said, let's start pushing the black and white thing. He's like, why are we going to like secular Jews in America and telling them about how everything, the sky is falling? Why don't we start with what's called the, shore up the base, which is religious Jews. If anything, religious Jews understand more why we need to make Aliyah, not the secular.
You know why,
secular
Greg?
society.
Because like Alla Pugacheva said, я не хочу петь для этой публики.
I don't want to sing to this public.
Let me explain what I just said. Can I take a moment?
Yeah.
There was a Russian singer, not Jewish, a Russian singer who was the most famous pop singer in modern.
Who lives in Israel? She lives in Israel now, by the way. I'm sorry.
That literally scrambles.
She moved with her Jewish husband Galkin, Maxim Galkin.
That literally just blows my. I cannot assimilate that information.
She fled Putin and now she lives in Israel. Yeah.
The fact that woman is located on the land of Israel. But getting back to the point, she in her heyday, she was like Russia's Madonna, whatever. But kind of more not sophisticated, but a little bit, not as raunchy. She wasn't raunchy at all, really. She was like,
more like romantic. Yeah.
She had she did have a nice voice, and she sang beautiful songs, and she was very, very popular in Soviet Union. Okay. And in the 70s, right? In 70s and maybe early 80s. And a little bit later in the 90s, in the mid 90s, she was invited to come and sing in America for people in America who speak Russian immigrants in America from Russia, right? Like Brighton Beach and Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn, that area where most Russians live. And when she came out and she saw the kind of people that were there, I'm assuming, she saw like older Russian Jewish people, right? She said, I don't want to sing for this type of audience. She felt herself too good. That's why it kind of like shocks me that she lives in Israel, right? That she didn't sing for Jews, basically, who came to listen to her, right? Russian-speaking Jews. So, but anyway, why am I bringing that up now? Because he was talking about how why don't move to Israel advocates target the Orthodox Jewish community who are religiously inclined already.
And even the more Haredi community, not even like non-Orthodox, but more like,
because the the Israeli political class, the non-religious, atheistic, anti-Torah, anti-Jewish political class of Israel,
yeah,
doesn't want them there.
yeah. They know what the answer is going to be. If they go, if my friend Josh Wander, my Facebook friend or my quasi acquaintance, goes to Flatbush, he goes into Flatbush, and I'm sure he's been there. And I want, actually, maybe Josh, if you're listening to this, if you will listen to this, maybe you can give me the answer to this question, because I don't know what happened. If you have already gone to Flatbush and other places like it, black hat, Torah communities in New York, and you've told them about Aliyah, I'm curious to know the answer. I'm pretty sure one of the answers will be the Rishoyim Arurim are forcing us to go to the army. What, you want my kid to go to the army? They're pulling funds from the yeshivas. The evil, Yair Lapid, who's a chip off the block of his father, who, by the way, his wife
is a Christian, isn't she?
She sued Rabbi Tovia Singer. She did sue her. She is suing for sort of accusing her of being a Jew for Jesus.
Hey, we should have Rabbi Singer on this pod.
We should. He's right now in America.
You know why? Because a lot of the people listening to him consider him the Antichrist.
Rabbi, can I say something? Rabbi Tovia Singer,
yeah.
He knows the New Testament better than 99% of Christians on God's green earth.
Better than 99% of priests.
Humanity of priests. He knows the Torah better than most people. He knows the Tanakh better than most people. He can reconcile what the Tanakh says and what you think the New Testament says and what the Christians think the Tanakh says. Because I've had people, I don't know if you see these comments on our thing. You should look into the Torah because the Torah says the word Yeshua 100 and something times. And Yeshua is referring to JC, Mr. JC.
Oh, what is it?
The word Yeshua means redemptions. Yeah, see, it's referring to JC because just JC's redemptions. Yeah, the Torah was written 2,000 years before JC even lived.
Oh no, but it was a hint of the future.
Yeah, it was hinting to the future.
Listen, I don't want to get into...
Folks, I want to post the meme, Sylvester the cat banging his hand against the pole.
Yeah. Yeah, so no, I mean, look, the point, I was just saying that to kind of be inflammatory.
Yeah.
Sometimes, no, but we should have him on.
We should. Yeah.
If he would come on. I don't know if he would, but...
He would, yeah.
But basically, yeah, so, look, bottom line, the government of Israel does not represent the Jewish people. It should, but it doesn't. We need a government in Israel that represents the Jewish people. They're Jewish, and that follows the Torah. Do you understand? And the Torah, and folks, Jews without Torah equals Jews without common sense. Unstable Jews. Torah is the mind and the beating heart of the Jews. Without Torah, Jews are nothing. Nothing. Okay? With Torah, Jews are the best. Without Torah, Jews are completely lost and end up in the worst activities and circles, the worst. Okay? We need a government who... See, the Torah, if the government followed the Torah would tell you, Iron Dome, what? Get rid of the security threat. Mm-hmm. The sworn enemy that has sworn to flay your children and behead your daughters while raping them, you have to get rid of them. Don't set up an Iron Dome to intercept their arrows and their bombs, you retards.
Frank, can I make everybody and maybe even your hair stand up by reading directly from and it's interesting because a lot of people like to read this one line from the Talmud. It's called the tractate is called Sanhedrin, that talks about what you're supposed to do, if your enemies are rising up to kill you.
Please.
what they don't read is the following the passages after that, which when I read them, I was like, oh my God, like listen to this.
After this, I want to talk about my brother a little bit.
Sure. And then we might here. This is from page 72a of the Talmud tractate called Sanhedrin. And here it says, okay, if someone, okay, it goes, Rava says, what is the reason for this halacha, Jewish law, concerning a burglar who breaks into a house? He explains, Rava was a rabbi, one of the Talmudic rabbis at the time. There is a presumption that a person does not restrain himself when faced with losing his money, and therefore this burglar must have said to himself, if I go in and the owner sees me, he will rise against me and not allow me to steal from him, and if he rises against me, I will kill him. And the Torah stated a principle. So now you guys see all these cases now of like, somebody coming to rob somebody in real life, and the person kills the guy, and then the leftists are like, oh, how could he kill the guy? He's murdering the guy. The Torah says you can murder the guy who comes to rob from you, right?
Not murder.
Yeah. So or to kill the guy. To stop him in his tracks. Yeah. And the Torah stated a principle. If someone comes to kill you, rise and kill him first. Rav says, if a burglar broke into a house and took certain vessels, and he then left and was caught only afterward, he is exempt from the obligation to pay or subdue. Okay, so now they're talking about like damages, right? But I wanted to get to a part they talks about here. 1 second. Burglar's possession. There's something I'm sure it talks about here of a guy. Oh, here you go. Rav explains. Okay, they're talking about, but it is not so. There's no proof from that case, and that can be applied to this one. One can claim that when the merciful one established the vessels in the burglar's possession, that was only concerning accidents, so he should be liable to pay for any damage that occurs to them. But as for ownership, they remain in the possession of their owner. No, there's a part where it talks about. I want to read this to drive the point home of what I'm trying to say. Talmud. Here, 1 second. Here we go. It talks about, okay. So this is like a comment. This is something. Here you go. Having discussed, this is just a website that talks about the Mishnah, the Talmud. Having discussed the various offenses one can be charged with capital punishment, the Mishnah discusses cases where the potential perpetrator of the crime can be killed outside the court system. On a case is Chaba B'Machteret, a thief who tunnels into another's home. The Torah teaches that a homeowner is allowed to kill the thief. We shall try to understand why. Here we go. Abaye in the Gemara 72a explains that the reason the Torah permits the killing the thief is because there is a presumption that one would not stand idle if another is trying to take their property. When the thief enters the tunnel, he goes in knowing this, is prepared to attack and kill the owner of, if confronted, the thief, not like just a guy who's trying to murder through a tunnel. The Gemara explains that this is the case, therefore, it's a case of a rodef, like a one who's trying to kill another. There's a mitzvah to kill that person.
Can I let me stop you for a
second. It talks about people tunneling.
Hang on, let me time out.
Yeah.
Okay, so he just mentioned something called a rodef.
Yeah.
Basically, the Torah says, and there are verses in the Torah that if you see someone pursuing another to kill them, right? If you're in Israel, in ancient Israel, and you see one person running away and another person, running to kill them, you're commanded to stop and, if necessary, kill the pursuer to stop that murder. So the person who is pursuing their intended victim, that, the one who's trying to murder, that's called the rodef in the Torah. That's so basically what the Talmud here is saying, that if someone is tunneling into your home, or if you notice that somebody is trying to tunnel into somebody else's home, even if their primary goal is to rob that person, right? The problem is that they're not just a robber, because they know that if they understand that in the course of this activity, they may have to kill the resident, right? To succeed in stealing the object and to maintain their anonymity, to make sure that nobody can testify against them, right? So if you see somebody tunneling into somebody else's property or into your property, you can kill them. Similar to the way you are allowed to kill, if necessary, someone trying to murder someone else. That's what the Talmud is saying.
Yeah. So this literally is talking about, folks, this is something from, 1,500, 1,600 years ago.
No, it was written.
It was written
from
yeah.
3,300.
It's from 3,300. But I mean, it's talking about Hamas or someone like Hamas.
No, Hamas. No, it's not, folks. It's not even talking about Hamas. Hamas, they're not just trying to rob.
Yeah,
they're literally doing it to murder. Murder.
Yeah, and which all the more so.
Exactly, all the more so.
We have to do what we have to do, and the fact that we want to do it, and the fact that the government's not doing it, and then you come to folks in America, Torah observant folks, and you say, I've had a lot of people tell me, Torah observant people, what am I going to do? I'm going to go to Israel and deal with the Arabs over there because the government can't protect me? What am I, crazy?
No, the government doesn't want to follow the Torah, which means the government won't protect its people.
Yeah.
Before we move on from this, I saw this thing where it was like a Twitter post, okay, that talked about the New York City subway station. Excuse me, the New York City subway network and the London Metro, the London Underground.
Underground,
right? Yeah. Can you like search quickly? I can't find my glasses, so I can't type.
So what am I looking for?
I'm just curious. How long is the New York City subway? Like when if you were to, how many miles or kilometers of subway tracks?
Just wait. The actual track?
I think if you Google
subway track,
how long is the New York City subway, or how many miles, or how many kilometers?
The whole system, 665 miles, 1,000 kilometers.
1,000 kilometers. How about the London?
How long is the London Underground? 250 miles.
So like 400
kilometers, 402 kilometers.
Okay. So are there any associated maps? I want people to see, perhaps if it's available, a visual of the New York City subway system.
Yeah, there you go. New York City subway map. It's simple to find. They have it right over here. Right over here. Oops. Okay.
You sounded like Jack Nicholson as the Joker for a second.
Right over here. Right over.
Yeah, he was singing like that in that movie.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so this is a map of the New York City subway.
No.
Is there a way you can kind of maybe make it smaller? Yeah.
Bronx, Manhattan, Brooklyn.
Okay, so this is you said it's 1,000 kilometers. I think it's actually, I think it's between 700 and 1,000 kilometers. I heard.
Okay.
I think including the other boroughs. But if you look at just Manhattan, folks, Manhattan is that island on the left side where most of the
here's Manhattan.
That's about 500 kilometers of subway track.
Yeah.
London, you said, is about 450. You said something like that, right?
Yeah.
Folks, Gaza, the Gaza tunnel, they found over 500 kilometers of tunnels underneath Gaza.
Yeah. It's a city. There's a city under Gaza.
So why am I bringing this up? Because we know that it was dug through child labor.
Yeah.
And I would like to one day know how many of the worldwide disappeared children, not just from Gaza, not just the Arab kids who were forced to dig the tunnels, but just kids from all over the world that were kidnapped and disappeared and trafficked. I'd like to know how many of them ended up digging those tunnels.
Astounding. Yeah. Now that we know that Islam enslaves other children.
Now that we know the extent of those tunnels,
Yeah.
folks, they were aided, by the way, by China.
Yeah.
2 Chinese engineers were arrested by Israel in Gaza. That doesn't mean they were the only 2 that were. Those are the ones that were arrested.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here, this is from the Hindustan Times. IDF found Chinese weapons tunnel engineers in Gaza. Here, you get
Chinese tunnel engineers in Gaza.
Yeah, cutting edge Chinese military hardware and weaponry in Gaza. He added that Hamas tunnels were designed and constructed with assistance from Chinese PLA experts in tunnel warfare.
People's Liberation Army
of China, yeah.
That's communists. They're all communists.
Yeah.
Okay.
It could also be that the designs are also Russia stuff, but that's speculation on my end. But
you know, when they stole the election from Donald Trump, right? That's when all that Q crap blew up, right?
Yeah.
And QAnon this, and then the tunnels, right? The smuggling tunnels, and the sacrificing of the children, and the deep underground military bases, and you're probably familiar with all these terms, right? We know people who are very into that kind of stuff. As far as I don't agree with it at all. As far as I know, Greg, unless he changed his mind, doesn't agree with it. But it makes the Gaza tunnels make me reconsider that, because if you can only understand the extent, the scale of what they built. Forget about the fact that they were giving hundreds of billions of dollars by the UN and the countries that were funneling money into these into aid for Gaza, right? Instead of building an economy and building a city and building a thriving thing, they built an underground tunnel city. Folks, I'm starting to think that perhaps those are the main tunnels that all these Q people were talking about, or maybe what they thought they were talking about, because we have an underground city literally built to wage war against Israel, and it's a massive operation. People, you don't understand. These dummies in Gaza could not do this by themselves. They're Middle Eastern savages. You understand? Like the labor force necessary to accomplish that is similar to building the pyramids of Egypt, if not more. They built it in how long? 20 years? Probably they were building it before Gaza was evacuated from Jews. Folks, the Israeli government pulled all Jews out of Gaza. It's Jew-free. Okay, so instead of having an independent state, we know that, but they launched a war. But the scale of those tunnels troubles me to such an extent that, like today, they uncovered a tunnel that was over 1 kilometer in length, one straight tunnel, 1 kilometer, and these are big enough to drive a vehicle through. A small vehicle, but you can drive, you can drive like a golf cart through it, or you can drive like on a motorcycle, you can get through it. Yeah. Standing up.
Sir, is it okay?
These aren't crawling wrap tunnels. These are like, arched with reinforced concrete tunnels, with electricity running through them.
Sir, is it okay
people think it's an ant farm?
Is it okay if I read something very quickly? This is from a webinar on May 28th. The CCP's invasion of Israel, how she set fire to the Middle East. This is Frank Gaffney,
I've heard of him.
He has an organization with Rabbi Pesach Waluki, Lieutenant Colonel Guermantes Lailari, and Dr. David Wormser. That's fine. So here, this Guermantes Lailari. Who's Guermantes Lailari? He is a... He is a retired U.S. Air Force Foreign Area Officer specializing in counterterrorism, irregular warfare, and missile defense. So Grammatis Lilari, he goes on to say, and this is a transcript from this Zoom that they had. He talks about, Mohammed Deif. Mohammed Deif is the head of the military wing of Hamas. So he goes, and one of interesting facts is that Mohammed Deif has 2 Chinese wives. Now, how did Mohammed Deif get 2 Chinese wives? We're gonna have to check that, but he goes on. It's just funny. He goes on to say he was living and learning in China in the 1990s.
At the same time, 2 Chinese wives at the same time.
Yeah. What was he doing? He was at the PLA School for Ordnance and Artillery, learning about rockets, explosives, and everything that has rained down on Israel since the 1990s. So this guy, who's now has been the head of the military wing of Hamas, has been well trained by the People's Liberation Army on how to make life difficult for Israelis and anybody else who's living in Israel. That's a big factor. I mean, the fact that he was directly trained by the People's Liberation Army and then became the head of the military wing. The second most important factor is the weapons that were found and the equipment that was found in the tunnels under Gaza. Yes, there were Russian weapons. There were Chinese weapons. There were even North Korean weapons. But reports in the open press emphasized that. The Israelis stated that the weapons they found were highly sophisticated Chinese weapons, and there was intelligence collection equipment that was Chinese-made. There were rockets that had Chinese technology in them and missiles. So all these military-type things was unusual because the way it was reported in the press was that the IDF was actually very surprised at what they found. I wouldn't have included this if the Israelis had said, this is normal material that might be found in any terrorist organization around the world. But they emphasized that this is highly sophisticated equipment, both in the weapons area and in the electronics and communication intelligence area. And probably the third important factor was there were 2 PLA engineers that they found in the tunnels, and China rapidly tried to put pressure on Israel to return them, and even try to get the Russians to put some pressure on Israel to return these 2 guys. And they went back to China. I don't think they were interrogated. I don't know for sure. But why are there 2 PLA tunnel engineers in Gaza? To me, that's very suspect. And the fact that we don't know, for example, if there were previous engineers there and helping them design the entire network, we don't know. But we can suspect that there was some involvement of China in helping Hamas design these tunnels that went on for miles and miles and were very sophisticated. They had air pressure systems, so if one part of the tunnel was blown up, it wouldn't affect the other part. These are not things that, terrorists typically design as part of their network. So that's kind of the rough facts on the ground that were found. And that is sort of the China-Hamas direct connection. And I guess the last part, if you want me to get into the 3-war concept, and then Gaffney goes on to, as he says, Gaffney talks about, that was an excellent overview of the evidence that is most immediately at the hand of the Chinese Communist Party, involvement in Hamas activities, and that contributed clearly to this invasion. We're going to develop that theme further. Now he goes on to talk about these things.
So, yeah. So basically, let me say a word about my brother. We have a couple more things to talk about.
Sure.
It's a 4th of July special. So let's just, if it goes a little longer than usual, it's okay.
Yeah.
I just want to read something. I just wrote this. It was my brother's 2-year Yortzai is coming up this Wednesday. And he, it's the day of his passing. On the Jewish calendar, he passed on the 1st day of the month of Tammuz. This is also the birthday of the biblical Joseph. Joseph, the son of Jacob, the original Joseph. That's very, very meaningful. It's more than meaningful. It's a tremendous indication of something about my brother. We'll talk about it another time. And his connection to the biblical Joseph and to the job of what the biblical Joseph was supposed to accomplish in this world. Clearly, my brother was a part of that. So I just want to read something.
So it's actually July. This year it falls on July 7th, your brother's Yortzeit. The 1st of Tammuz, next week.
Right. but
not tomorrow.
The important day is the date on the Jewish calendar.
Yeah, so that's next week.
Yeah. No, it's actually no, it's this Wednesday
No,
or Thursday.
it's on Sunday. I'm looking at it now. First of Tammuz is it's Sunday. Sorry, yeah, it's Sunday, the 7th. It was the secular date was the 30th, which was yesterday,
Yeah.
June 30th.
Right.
The Hebrew is for Tammuz is Sunday. Whatever.
Oh, I think I got a little bit screwed up because some of his kids are flying in.
Yeah.
On Wednesday, but
Yeah.
to stay for Sunday. Okay.
Yeah.
Where the hell? Stupid internet. Twitter does not work well on the desktop. For some reason on my desktop. Let me go. I'll just find it. Just bear with me.
Sure.
Moment. Stupid internet. Okay. I think it's my Wi-Fi that's acting up. Okay, so I wrote, don't trust famous people in mortals who cannot save. His plans don't succeed. Happy is he who has the God of Jacob for his help, whose hope is in the Lord his God. So that's a more precise translation of some of the verses in Psalm 146, I want to say, starting from verse 3. I think that's the Psalm of David.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote, this is written by the first Zionist. This psalm, the Psalms of David were written by the world's first Zionist, King David. He's the one who identified Jerusalem, found it. He found it. The location of Jerusalem, of where the permanent site for the sanctuary, God's sanctuary, would be. It was not yet revealed to Israel. Remember, the Ark of the Covenant was in the sanctuary in Shiloh for 300 years, more than 300 years. Okay, it had several locations, but God revealed the permanent site of the sanctuary to David, King David, and David is the first Zionist, King David. Okay, if you want to know what a Zionist is, that's King David. King David is the ideal archetype of the Zionist, the real Zionists. So I wrote that those words, they were written by the first Zionist, King David. Dr. Zelenko, my brother, Dr. Zelenko, right, who's King David's disciple, right? He lives by these words. Okay, so the reason I wrote that is because there are still people here and there who are trying to pretend like we're trying to make it seem or skew reality that because my brother criticized Netanyahu and a few other officials in Israel, that he was one of those Jews who is anti-Zionist. Nothing could be further from the truth. Okay? He was a religious Zionist, 100% Zionist, true Zionist, religious. You can't be a religious Jew and not be a Zionist. You can't. A real Zionist, you can't. It's part of our religion. It's absolutely it's foundational to our religion.
As far as how we define Zionism, not how
as far as how
Jabotinsky defines Zionism.
No, as far as how our religion defines Zionism.
Yeah.
In more modern times, you have atheist socialists who use that word
co-opted. Yeah.
They co-opted or whatever the hell, whatever. They stole the word and used it in its opposite meaning. And now you have people who hate Jews, and now they point to those lefty, atheist, socialist people and call them Zionists. And they have, and I don't really care about correcting those people because they're fueled by their hatred, not by reality. If any of those people did a tiny bit of research, right, and they're like, well, what is Zionism, right? They could easily scratch the surface, just begin investigating and notice that the lefties in Israel who call themselves labor Zionists are not Zionist at all. And in fact, the religious people, the Jews, who real Zionism is embedded in the foundation of our very religion. Okay, anybody who cares about the truth in the slightest bit would discover that for themselves. But so I don't care about changing the minds of Jew haters who will always look at me and my religion and my people in a negative light anyway. I don't care about what they think at all. But for some of you out there listening who want to know, who are interested in reality, and again, this is not a sermon. I'm not trying to proselytize you, but again, this is just like, here's what the belief is. Here's what our tradition says. That's the reality. Okay? I don't like people who try to lie to people about what something is. Like, here's a ridiculous thing. Here's a rabbit with purple ears, somebody says. And you look at it, and it's a cat with brown ears. So I have a problem with that. Why did that person say it's a rabbit with purple ears? It bothers me. Stop lying, okay? So that's what that's part of the reason for this show is to stop. It's just like to speak the truth for its own sake. I don't care how you feel about it. I really don't. I don't care if you're inspired by it or if it repels you. I don't give a shit. I just want the truth to be stated. Okay. So I wanted to just say that about my brother because we're not going to have another episode until after. I might not be able to do an episode the day of his Yortzeit. It's 2 years. So I thought we should, just mention a word about it. He really lived. He really exemplified the first Zionist, King David. We have to keep emphasizing that Zionism is Davidism, King Davidism, Zionism, same thing. Okay.
Jerusalemism.
Jerusalemism, the Temple Mount-ism, Zionism, all the same thing. The Shekhinah, God's presence, that's Zionism. Okay. So my brother, he quoted King David more than anybody else that he quoted, right? He said, don't trust these people with the cult of personality. Don't trust, Bill Gates, the science guy, or Bill Nye, the science guy. The same shit. Bill Nye, the science guy, is more of a scientist than Bill Gates, the science guy. Okay? Don't trust people because they're famous. Don't trust Fauci because his name is doctor. He never treated anybody. He doesn't treat people. He made people sick. He poisoned them and instructed people to do horrible experiments on children and on animals for his entire life. Okay,
folks, you know what he did during the AIDS epidemic? He instead of, and this is what the movie Dallas Buyers Club is about with McConaughey, where these guys in the homosexual community, they founded off-label medications, cheap treatments that work. And what did he do? Fauci, he pushed something called AZT, which killed people. What did he do during COVID? He did the same thing. Instead of, I'm not going to say because of YouTube, he pushed, what is that stuff called? Azithromycin. I'm sorry, not azithromycin. He pushed, oh my God. Remdesivir, excuse me. Your brother pushed azithromycin. He pushed remdesivir, and we know how that turned out.
So can we play you sent it to me. I posted it already, but the footage, the secret footage from after the Democratic Party debate, with Hitler's reaction to the.
Oh.
Wait, I posted. Sorry, not that one. If you go on my Twitter, I posted another one about hydroxychloroquine. Can we play that one?
Let's see if YouTube bans Hitler talking about hydroxychloroquine. It'll be the funniest thing.
I'm playing this because I want to talk about what was important to my brother.
Ja. Es ist dem Feind gelungen, die Front in breiter Formation zu durchbrechen. Im Süden hat der Gegner Zossen genommen und stößt auf Stahnsdorf vor. Der Feind operiert jetzt am nördlichen Stadtrand zwischen Frohnau und Pankow. Und im Osten ist der Feind bis zur Linie Lichtenberg, Marsdorf, Karlshorst gelangt.
Mit dem Angriff Steiners wird das alles in Ordnung kommen.
Mein Führer, Steiner konnte nicht genügend Kräfte für einen Angriff massieren. Der Angriff Steiner ist nicht erfolgt.
Es bleiben im Raum Keitel, Jodl, Krebs.
That's actually great. That's fantastic. Oh my God, the guy that played Goebbels.
Yeah.
Scary. They find this
Das
guy.
war ein Befehl! Der Angriff Steiners war ein Befehl! Wer schickt Sie? Dass Sie es wagen, sich meinen Befehl zu widersetzen!
Brilliant.
Oh, weit ist das einfach gekommen.
Unbelievable. Yeah, in Israel, they had Gemachs.
Jeder hat mich belogen, sogar die SS. Die gesamte Generalität ist nichts weiter als ein Haufen niederträchtiger, treuloser Feiglinge.
Mein Führer, ich kann nicht zulassen, dass die Soldaten, die für Sie verbringen...
Nicht als Feiglinge! Verreiter, Versager!
Mein Führer, was Sie da sagen, ist ungeheuerlich.
Die Generalität ist das Geschmeiß des deutschen Volkes. Sie ist ohne Ehre! Sie nennen sich Generale, weil Sie Jahre auf Militärakademien zugebracht haben, nur um zu lernen, wie man Messer und Gabel hält. Jahrelang hat das Militär meine Aktionen nur behindert. Es hat mich jeden nur als winzigen Widerstand in den Weg gelegt. Ich hätte gut daran getan, von Jahren alle höheren Offiziere liquidieren zu lassen, wie Stalin. Ich war nie auf einer Akademie. Und doch habe ich allein auf mich gestellt, ganz Europa erobert. Verräter! Von allem Anfang an bin ich so verraten und betrogen worden. Es wurde ein ungeheurer Verrat geübt am deutschen Volke. Aber alle diese Verräter werden bezahlen. Mit ihrem eigenen Blut werden sie bezahlen. Sie werden es saufen in ihrem eigenen Blut.
Bitte gerne.
You were heard in those videos.
Meine Befehle sind in den Wind gesprochen.
Listen.
Yeah.
The most important.
Es ist unmöglich, unter diesen Umständen zu führen. Es ist aus. Der Krieg ist verloren. Aber wenn Sie, meine Herren, glauben, dass ich deswegen Berlin verlasse, irren Sie sich gewaltig. Eher jage ich mir eine Kugel durch den Kopf. Tun Sie, was Sie wollen.
Oh yeah.
The only thing he got wrong is that they're going to try it again with clearly the bird flu. That's what they're going.
Bird flu, yeah.
So that wasn't from 2020. I just wanted to say a little bit more about my brother, that he was a true disciple of King David, because King David in his Psalms, he wrote, he goes, stay away from evil and do good.
Mm-hmm.
Turn away from evil and do good. Right? Those are the words from the Psalms. My brother, he spoke about that all the time. It's a very, very simple, but the most potent piece of information that you can deliver to mankind. Okay. And he meant that stay away from, first of all, understand that don't trust famous people. Okay. Trust in God. Follow your intuition. Think about God. What would God want you to do? Trust in him. Would he want you to poison yourself? Would he want you to test experimental drugs on yourself in order to go on vacation, to keep a job, or to attend school or something like that. Is that what God wants you to do? Of course not. The answer is of course not. Okay. Would God ask you to poison yourself? Would God want that? He gave you a life. He gave you a body. He gave you free will. Would he want you to poison yourself, or to be a test subject with your free will so you can go to a stupid Club Med or a stupid cruise? Okay. Or keep a stupid job. Okay. This comes from hundreds of hours of me speaking on the phone to people who are trying to get exemption letters from my brother. And I'm telling them, what if it doesn't work? You got to be strong. So hundreds of hours, thousands of hours. I don't know how much time, all day, all night for a year and a half. Okay. That was like half my job. So turn away from evil. Evil is rolling the dice or gambling with your life to go on vacation or go to school or to keep a job. That's evil. Turn away from that. Do good. Okay? Listen to your intuition. Your intuition comes from God. Don't trust famous people. Don't trust in their plans. Their plans fall apart. If you think they're big and powerful, you think the World Economic Forum, the globalists are this, this impenetrable, this indestructible juggernaut that you have no choice but to comply with. It's not true. Their plans will die away. Nothing can take on God. They think they can. They're fools. Okay? Nothing can take on God. They're dissolving before our eyes. Okay? This is my brother's message. Okay? Simple stuff. King David, the basic stuff that King David spoke about, for people to contemplate and to follow. Okay? And my brother was very much a Zionist and very much a student of the first and most important Zionist, King David. I want to say that about my brother. There's a lot more to say, but what's her name? Anastasia, Dr. It's like crazy biatch.
Lucas. Yeah.
So no, she somebody posted a tweet that she wrote, 95% of Jews are Zionists. Damn right. And proud of it. Okay?
Yeah.
It is absolutely synonymous with Judaism, with Torah. There is no Torah without Zionism, real Zionism, King David Zionism. Could we just say a few more words about the 4th of July?
We can.
I just wanted to say that America is the greatest gift besides the Torah that God has ever given to mankind, to humanity in general, up to this point. Okay? The only thing that will ever surpass America will be post-Messianic Israel. Actually, the post-Messianic world. There's going to be, there is no part of the world that's going to be evil, or that's going to be, dominated or even influenced by tyranny, oppression, evil, communism, savagery. That will be banished from the world entirely. Okay. But, that's after Messiah does his work, finishes his work. But until then, America has been the shining crown of refuge for the good part of humanity, the part of humanity that seeks to run away from savagery, from brutality, from the part of humanity that just wants to live and let live, that just wants to work the land, live their life as given by God. Okay. Practice their belief and their faith, grow their crops, do their craft, live, benefit from the fruits of their own labor, help their community by choice, and not be molested by criminal organizations, whether inside or outside the government. Okay? That is America. And the foundation of America is based on Torah principles. It's based on God, the creator, and the rights and privileges that a person is automatically born with because that's how God made us. America exists only on God's authority. It's not a document. It's not the Supreme Court. It's not anything. Your ability to have rifles and weapons is given to you by God. Your ability to hold on to your possessions that you acquire through your work was given to you by God. Your ability to believe whatever you want to believe was given to you by God. It's called free will. Okay? Your ability to say what you want to say was given to you by God. No one can challenge that. No court at all. No sheriff, no cop, nothing. Nobody can do that. They are sinners. They are tyrannical maniac sinners. Anybody who tries to take any of that away from you is sinning against the creator of existence. That's what America is based on. People need to understand that you're free Americans, your freedoms are entirely given to you by God. It's not the Constitution. It's not even George Washington. It's God. They created a republic based on that. Okay? Even Thomas Paine believed that, the supposed heretic, the heretic of heretics. Okay? He believed in a creator. Okay? He just didn't he didn't like the Christian version of it or whatever. Okay? So Thomas Paine, the primary philosopher of the American Revolution. Okay? They created a republic. The founding fathers created a republic based on God's authority, and they promoted it to people who understood the absolute necessity of basic morality as prescribed by the Hebrew scripture. That's what this republic is based on. Okay? Christianity absorbed those basic principles of morality. Don't commit adultery. Don't murder. Don't steal. Don't kidnap. Respect your mother and father. Establish courts of law. Enforce justice. Don't curse God. He's the entire foundation of your republic. Don't do that. It's a bad idea. You're getting us all in trouble. God is the one who's keeping our republic stable. He gave us all our natural divine rights. Don't curse him. Okay? They understood the importance of those basic principles. Okay? And don't rape, don't murder, don't steal for any reason. You can't do that under any circumstances. Killing might be necessary if someone is attacking you, God forbid. Nobody wants that. Okay? It's not murder. Don't rape anyone. You're not allowed to do that under any circumstances. No one is. Don't steal their stuff. It's not yours. You're not allowed to do that. Everything was given by God. You are going against God. They understood, except for that idiot Jefferson, that Islam promotes that behavior if you're not a Muslim. It's okay to do that if you're not a Muslim, if you could get away with it. If you're powerful enough to do that for the sake of Islam, then you must. That's jihad. They understood that. That's not compatible with the republic that they set up. Because the people who live in this republic don't rape, murder, or steal under any circumstances. There's never any justification for rape, murder, and theft, ever. How hard is that That's not a big deal, folks. That's not a big deal. Do you understand? Not letting people in here to this country who don't agree with that, they don't belong in this country. They don't belong in the world, really, but certainly not in America. You're not going to get your country back unless you understand this. That's 4th of July. And to answer your question that you started off with, yes, of course they understood the significance of the day that they chose to declare independence, the 4th of July. And I just wanted to mention that this upcoming 4th of July, Pluto, the planet Pluto, will return to the same exact position that it was at the original 4th of July, 1776. That's one orbit of Pluto.
When is that going to happen?
This 4th of July.
Oh, wow.
250 years, right? Is this the 250th 4th of July?
Let's take I don't know. I'll take a look. 2024 minus, oops, 248.
248, which is pretty important number for Jews. 248.
Well, it actually said Pluto to return on February 22nd, 2022.
No.
So where is this?
No, I sent you the article. Remember from
The
space.
U.S. One second. The U.S. Pluto return. Oh yeah, there you go. Pluto takes roughly 248. I'm reading this as one of these websites. Wow. One second. Oh, this is just like astrology. There we go. The Pluto return. Okay. Oh, okay. The dates of Pluto return has been in range using a 2.5 degree orb. The entire month of April 2020, January 2021 until August 2021, December 2021 until March 2023, includes all of 2022, June 7th until, okay, and then you get August. Yeah, but so what does this have to do with July 4th?
Where's that article that I sent you? I'm looking for it now. A couple of days ago.
I mean, it's been happening. Kind of the.
No. There's something.
Is this a specific thing?
Yeah. Hold on a second. I mean, unless the article went out of its way to make me look like a fool, which is possible, I suppose.
It says, yeah, there's another one. A nation dying or being reborn. Here you go. July. Yeah. Retrograde in direct motion on July 11th and December 28th of this. Oh, that's Moon conjunct with Mars. Moon. This is all like different. This is annoying. I mean, I read about this before. All the planets entering Leo also going to oppose Pluto and Aquarius, July 2024. I don't say anything about specifically July 4th. I mean, you sent me an article, but I don't. Here, you know what? Let's go to. You sent it on
WhatsApp for sure.
On Signal, you sent it. Here. That's when
On
our
what?
friend was like, "Can you elaborate on that?" Here you go. Space news.
Oh,
Here
that's right. On
yeah.
Signal. I also sent it.
Here you go. Okay.
Thank you for remembering. Gosh.
In other words, one Pluto year has now passed so that Pluto's location in the solar system is back to the same spot it was on July 4th, 1776 for the first time since then. As of July 4th, 1776, only 5 planets, excluding Earth, had been discovered: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Pluto, approximately 1,400 miles in diameter, wasn't discovered until 1930. Pluto was long classified as a 9th planet. In 2006, the International Astronomical Union reclassified Pluto from a planet to a dwarf planet after the discovery of many other Pluto-like objects in the Kuiper Belt. Yeah. Okay, and declassified as a planet during its most recent full 248 Earth year revolution. Much else has been changed on Earth. The U.S. grown from 13 original colonies to 50 plus Washington and the territories. That's this whole article.
Can you just flash the article on the screen for a minute?
I need to find it here.
Can I just read it quickly? I'm just going to read it.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so this article was released on June 14th, 2024.
Yeah.
So it says in 2 years and 20 days. not this July 4th, in 2 years, July 4th and 2 July 4ths from now,
Yeah.
right? It will celebrate, America will celebrate its 250th birthday.
250th.
Okay, and also Pluto will return to the same space, to the beginning of its orbit, to the same place that it was on July 4th, 1776. Okay, so that's how long one orbit around the sun is for Pluto. Another thing, and that's not the main thing. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't crazy. What I really wanted to get, I just thought it was like a cool side thing. But July 4th, 1776, the Earth was in aphelion. So if you understand that the orbit of the Earth is not circular, but it's elliptical, right? So if this right here is the sun, then, and this is the Earth, then it doesn't go around like this. It doesn't go around like this. It goes like this.
Yeah.
Like that. So aphelion is up here.
Yeah.
When is the furthest point within the orbit of Earth around the sun. It's the point of time when Earth is furthest away from the sun. It happens every year. Okay, July 4th was the furthest point. July 4th, 1776 was the furthest point of Earth away from the sun. So I want to explain what that means in reality. I don't know if the founding fathers were conscious of this or not, okay, or if it's just something that was kind of like a divine decree that it must have been done in that day. Any of that is possible. In fact, probably it's a little of both. Okay, they were not experts in Torah Kabbalah, as far as I know. Okay, even though Freemasons, they thought that they understood some Kabbalistic concepts that they reinterpreted them for themselves. Okay, but the sun, according to the Torah, represents the sphera. There are 10 sphirot, right? We'll get into what spheres are anyway. It's not pieces of God. Okay, they're emanations. They're like, metaphorically speaking, like tools that God uses to create and to act in the world, in His creation. Okay, tools of God. It's pretty vague. It's pretty abstract, and yet that's what they are. Okay. So we know that the sun corresponds to one of the sphirot, Tiferet. Okay, and we know Tiferet corresponds to the Zeir Anpin. All right, that's a little. We'll get into that some other. Tiferet is part of the central column of the 10 sphirot. Okay, and it has a relationship with a sphera, the final, the 10th sphera, Malchut, represented by Earth, right? Like the planets in our solar system, each one is connected to one of these 10 sphera, specifically our solar system. Malchut represents the completion. It means kingdom. It means kingdom, but Malchut represents the end of a process. Right? The first sphera represents the beginning of a process, meaning of God creating existence, creating the world, and Malchut represents the completion of it. And Malchut is represented by Earth, because Earth in the future will be the primary, example or flagship of the completed project of this existence called the creation, God's creation. So what's the connection? Why, what's so important about aphelion? Well, there's obviously a relationship there between the sun and the earth. The sun is Zeir Anpin, represents God as He appears here in this world. Right? God has a persona that he dons to interact with us, to humanity in this world. And that the sun is connected to that aspect. It's not God. The sun isn't God, right? We just know that the sun is connected to that idea, to that principle. Okay? Because God created the universe for many reasons, and he created the stars and the planets for many reasons. But primarily, it's a show that he puts on for us in the sky to teach us lessons. The Earth has a very, very unique view onto the universe, and the behavior of the stars in the sky and the planets in the sky as they appear to us is their primary role. Like we're like the people on Earth, we're the audience, and the stars and the planets are actors on a stage acting something out for us, obviously directed by God. And so we can learn lessons about God. And it says that right in chapter 1 of Genesis there, that the stars and the planets, the moon, the stars, and the moon, the sun, and the stars are to be signs for you, right? They're indicators. They teach you, they give you information, important information, not just about holidays or how to keep time, but moral stories as well. There's a lot of information that God programmed into the sky, in the stars, for us to learn. If we understand how to if we can decrypt it properly, which the Torah teaches us how. Okay, so what is the significance between the sun being as far away from the Earth as it can possibly get in its natural orbit? So we know that Zeranpin, right, is which again, it's connected to this Sphira. It overlaps, or it is synonymous with Sphira Tiferet, part of the central column. And Malchut is also part of the central column, right? And they have a relationship, right? They are metaphorically speaking, like husband and wife. They have a connection, okay? But Malchut, sorry about that, Malchut, the Sphira, which represents the completion of God's plan, right? She is just a reflection of Tiferet. She's a reflection of Tiferet. She doesn't have anything of her own. She reflects everything that came before, primarily Tiferet. Okay? But you won't notice her while she's enveloped in the presence of Tiferet. But when she's at her furthest point away from Tiferet, do you notice her? Do you see her? Malchut. Okay? So in a sense, she is reflecting everything that she got from Tiferet, but at the same time, in order to even see her, she has to be at a certain distance, so she's not overwhelmed by the presence of Tiferet. You understand? So there could be a distinction between these two Sphirot. You understand, Greg? So to see Malchut is to also get a glimpse at her completion. Okay? So 1776, July 4th was one of these days, right? When Earth was far, Earth Malchut, right? And the sun Tiferet, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what. So America, the founding of America, it makes a lot of sense that it would be on that day, because America is sort of like one of the truly final stages of the completion of the Earth, of God's project, where the people who ended up in America, these special souls, right, with special consciousness, who abhor savagery and brutality and theft and murder and rape for any reason, and who understand, they feel the freedom, they feel their connection to God, and they understand that everything that they are and their spirit is based on what God gave them, right? So, and at the same time, God allows them to operate and to live with that consciousness. Whereas in Europe and in the East, people were still enveloped, like they didn't notice themselves. They were totally subjugated to the leadership, to the king, right? The sun. They didn't sense themselves. They didn't feel that they were anything. They didn't even exist. They were just servants. They were a non-entity compared to the government or the king or whatever.
Yeah.
Not in America. In America, we knew that everything we have and everything we comes from God. Just like Malchut understands, everything that it gets from is from Zeranpin, from Tiferet.
Yeah.
Yet we exist. We also are aware that God gave this to us so we can operate, because he wants us to operate in free will. That's America. Of course, it's going to be on aphelion. Okay? And I think America is an absolute necessity to affect the world, to prepare the world for Mashiach.
Yeah.
Okay? It's an absolute necessity. It's one of the final footsteps of Mashiach. Okay? That's America. And so,
Sir,
I think,
I deeply, like, I can't stress this enough how deeply I apologize. I need about a 2-minute. It's something that came to my attention. Actually, probably connected to Mashiach in a way. With regards to my wine business, it's not somebody. My partner just messaged me, and I just need to listen to this.
once again, folks, Greg betraying us. That's my little boy. He's complaining that this podcast is going on for too long. Well, folks, America is very, very special. Not Washington, not our government, which does nothing but ruin it. I'm talking about America. I'm talking about the effect that the founding fathers had on human consciousness itself. It was like an atomic bomb that went off. To truly, it had such an impact on mankind that every monarch on earth, every despot, every tyrant, every warlord was shaking to their core. It was the ultimate threat to that form of consciousness, which allowed them to operate, allowed them to exist without too much trouble. People criticize the founding fathers for having slaves. Everybody who had a business, everybody who had any kind of business at all, had slaves. That was literally the engine of the economy of the world up until the founding fathers. The founding fathers freed their slaves. They freed their slaves. Okay? And so they don't get the credit for that. And also, slavery still exists. And the people who criticize America for being founded by slavers, like people who support Hamas, people who support Muslim countries, they still have slavery, old school slavery, whip you unless you don't do what we say, to this day. So the people who got rid of slavery are being criticized for being slavers by slavers. Okay? Another thing, Greg, that you brought up a little while ago, the 3/5 rule, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to clarify that for a minute. The 3/5 rule was supposedly, people like Dave Chappelle and, people of that nature, they love to point out how black people were considered 3/5 of a real person. Okay, that's ridiculous. That's not true at all. It was, here's what it was all about. Okay, I still think it was a mistake, but it's called the 3/5 compromise. The northern states where slavery was forbidden, it was not legal, right? They did not want to allow southern states to include people they considered slaves in the population. To be counted as part of the population. Why is that important? Well, because congressional districts, right, representative, Congress and Senate, they have congressmen based on the population of areas, right? And where there are more people, the government could send more money. Okay, so the northern states did not want the southern states to benefit from the hypocrisy. Because if they're going to keep people enslaved, then you're not going to benefit from them as free people. Money, government money, going to certain parts of the United States for citizens. We're not going to let you exploit your slaves for financial purposes and consider them as citizens when you don't. So you're not going to get that money that you're trying to essentially, not embezzle, but you're basically trying to play these tricks. Okay, so if you're going to consider black people slaves, then they're not going to be counted as part of the population like you want. Okay, and then through the course of that discussion, right, they came up with a compromise. They're like, all right, we're still not gonna let it, but okay, fine, we'll do like 3/5. Okay, so we're not gonna count each slave as a citizen, but we'll count them as 3/5 as a citizen. That's what it was about. I think it was a stupid idea. I think they should have just not given any compromise. They should have not compromised with the southern states at all. Okay, because of this misunderstanding that we're now dealing with. Okay, so had nothing at all to do with the American government looking at slaves like they're not full human beings. People who keep saying that, fucking liars. They're evil. They're evil liars. They're slandering people who should be praised above everybody else because they got rid of slavery. They started the end of slavery. They ended slavery. Slavery would be everywhere if it was not for these men. And these are the men that you're going to be talking shit about. I despise you if you say anything bad about them. Certainly, at least in that respect. So that's the July 4th episode.
Sir, yes. And I just want to say what I was doing just now on the phone was,
betrayal of everything.
No, actually, no, Frank. It wasn't betrayal. It wasn't betrayal. You know why? Because how many times have I literally whined about the wine business, my wine business, and you are the one that gives me what's called hizuk. And, and I just got a phone call. I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to say that, like, it's entirely possible that this whole thing of mine might be resurrected from almost dying. Okay, we'll see what happens, but
I mean,
and I just had to attend to this not notification, but my partner telling me something that's significant. It's just
folks,
just taking too long. It's too long, like you say, Frank. It's taking too long.
Pray for Greg so that he can become rich and then get married. Also, please watch us on Rumble. What is our Rumble channel, Greg? Can you show the folks so they can recognize the symbol when they search for us on Rumble?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. It's the Nation of Israel.
They won't remember that. They need to see it.
There you go.
On the bottom left, right
Yes.
there.
Yes.
Okay. The channel is called The Nation of Israel, and the show is called Truth Fanatics. Here on Cloud Hub, right? Our channel is called Truth Fanatics.
Correct.
So please watch us on Cloud Hub, and please watch us on Rumble.
Yeah.
Please support Cloud Hub.
This is Cloud Hub.
This is Cloud Hub. This is a very...
I don't know why our channel, like, they made the video front of the video is a little small, but this is the general kind of community here. You go to Cloud Hub and you get to see all the so this is all the channels here. Different, you see the Vax Choice, different things.
Yeah.
And then you have our channel.
Support Cloud Hub because it's, as far as I understand, the only real free speech platform.
Yeah, our friend and Vandersteel is here on this platform.
Yeah, they have all the, you know, you have X22, you have Ann Vandersteel. A lot of the shows that you'll find on Rumble, you'll also find on Mel K. You'll find on on Rumble and on Cloud Hub and many others. So please support Cloud Hub. Todd Callender is a great guy, and we appreciate all the support that he gives us.
Yeah.
And again, you know, we're the only Orthodox Jews who, you know, with the show, who really tell you the truth about not only about everything, but even what we think. There's no diplomacy on the show whatsoever.
Absolutely.
Please support us.
Even if Frank in jokingly, you know, if I bring up certain things about Jews, he used to say the word Farrakhan, but even that's like,
I say Farrakhan when, if you're going to say something about it, you got to tell the whole truth.
oh, of course, and I always do. It's just, you know, when I start the sentence, Frank goes, Farrakhan.
So Farrakhan will tell you something about Jews.
Yeah.
He won't tell you the whole thing. He'll tell you the part that he thinks will make you mad, but he won't give you the context. He won't give you the whole story. He won't give you. So that's what I. So truth. If you're a truth fanatic, you got to tell the whole story. If you know. Anyway, so that's our show.
Yes.
We love you. God bless you.
And there's gonna be a lot of clips from this. I'm gonna take.
Happy 4th of July, and to understand
July.
And understand that the American Republic is absolutely unique, absolutely special.
Mm-hmm.
We have to save it because it's the only place on earth that truly is opposed to brutality, savagery, murder, rape, and theft. It's totally intolerant to this to this.
Contrary to what you've been told, and contrary to what you think, which is actually the people that you've usurped it that have been doing things in the name of it around the world.
Right. The deep state is here to destroy what the founding fathers did. So you cannot associate anything at all going on in Washington with the founding fathers. It's us, just the people, and who inherited the spirit and the type of soul that we were given by the founding fathers of America.
Yeah.
So God bless America.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. With that said, hopefully Mashiach will come, and hopefully we'll get to go home soon.
And then the whole world will be a place like what the founding fathers wanted for America.
Yeah. And
better.
Better.
Much better.
Yes. All right, folks. Peace out. Talk to you next week.
Yes, sir.